All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Sessions, streamed live from Shaker's Bar, downtown Cape. This is your weekly stop, hopefully for you guys, every Thursday from 8 to 10 p.m. And we're starting to really kind of get comfortable with this, and we've got a good following. And I know that several of you stop in every Thursday to watch, and that's what we love. So we're going to introduce the guests. We will have some musical guests here in a little bit. They'll be here a little bit later. But that is very hard for me to talk over my own self. Super hard.
Sounds like a personal problem.
I know, it is.
You want me to turn it up?
He loves to hear the sound of his own voice, so he gets mesmerized by it.
Of course.
But we will have a musical guest here around probably 9:15, hopefully, kind of do a couple sets for us, and another one of our open micers coming in. That's what we want to do, is give a chance for local talent to get on and have people check out their music. Everybody's clamoring to have an opportunity to be heard, so that's what we want to do with this show, and that's really what we do with all these fine folks that come in. So you'll notice that we have 3 familiar faces. I'm not counting myself, and then 1 new face. And so I'm going to introduce our guests to start out. That's Zach Mazade, Cody Essick is always right here. Dimitri Gann's back again, thank goodness. We had him missed one, got him back, so that's cool. And this is I met him actually through Cody here at the bar, and had a really good conversation with the guy, and I thought, man, he'd be perfect. Cody actually suggested he come on, so this is Jonathan Gautier. Is that right? Did I say it correctly?
Yeah, like Gautier.
Gautier? Oh, now you want to correct me.
Just anything.
So Gautier. Gautier? Okay. I thought it was Gautier. I thought that'd be really cool.
Well, that was my ancestors changed it way back in the day.
Really?
It was Gautier for a long time.
But is it spelled G-A-U-T-I kind of thing?
E-R, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, so it should be like Gautier.
Yeah.
I think is the original French pronunciation.
Johnny G.
I think
I might
you should
just
change
change
it
it
back.
back. Yeah, I might just flip it back.
It's way sexier. It's way sexier. Gautier. So, guys, we've had a busy week since last week, and a lot of things that have happened since. Of course, 9/11 is what we're sitting on, and we want to make sure that everybody is reminded of that. And I want to take just a real quick moment to give a shout out and a special thanks to all of the men and women that serve our country in not only the military. Obviously, we love the military, but the police officers and fire department, the EMTs, anybody that does something that sacrifices, all the first responders, anybody that sacrifices their life for other people in the pursuit of just trying to keep people safe and to keep this life going. This is a special thanks to you all, because a lot of you don't make a lot of money for doing what you're doing, and yet you're asked to sacrifice your life, and your families have to deal with the loss afterwards. But so special thanks to all of you. I don't know that we have anybody from New York watching, but if we do, God bless you guys at this time of the year. It was a tragedy what happened, but we always try to come out stronger and tougher after it happened. So
it was really awesome to see all the things that businesses did for the first responders. We gave out free lunches. There's like a lot of businesses.
Who did?
Downtown. Mary Jane did. Logan's did. I think Applebee's did.
Cool.
A lot of people, between a certain time, if you were a first responder, you could come in and eat for free that day. And I thought that was awesome.
Well, that is awesome. And if you are a local business, it's tribute and kind of a thank you to the local first responders, because we often don't sit and think about them often unless there's something that we need them for. I think about them all the time. I was a police officer in prison guard, and so I think about them every time when they're driving by, and anytime they had to deal with all of the things that we don't want to have to deal with.
Unimaginable amount of stress. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, it is, and then the families, of course, the wives and the husbands and the kids that are married to the first responders, they have to deal with it too. When you're married to someone in service, they're married to it, so they're part of it. They're part of the life too, and that's why the widows and the survivors of the people that are killed and injured in the line of duty deserve so much respect also for being there for them. So I just want to take that moment to kind of give a shout out there and give proper thanks to those fine folks. So I sent out some topics, as we always do, and if you guys don't know what this is a live stream show, and if you're just finding us, if someone kind of mentioned to you, said, hey, Thursday nights from 8 to 10 is a great time to stop and kind of see what's going on. I know some people work watch. I know that some people we've got some people, actually we've got kind of a good spreading around the country right now, some people watching, so we want this to be shared and spread. And today's show is going to be awesome. Bunch of ladies from the board.
I know.
It's like a parade of board and brush people. We've got a place down the street down here where they can make their own like name placards and boards with wood and stuff, and they always come down in big groups of people.
Was they making doormats?
They're all making doormats.
Yeah.
They're all holding.
Okay.
12 people just walked by holding doormats. It was pretty interesting.
They're huge. They're like this big.
Yeah, man, that's do the big work, take it home, and something special about making your own stuff. And
We did a
People
paint
walking
pour.
on it forever.
yeah,
You ever done like an acrylic paint pour? We did one at Catapult Creative House last month. Me, Ryan, and some friends.
acrylic paint pour.
So much fun.
What is it?
You mix like a bunch of different acrylic paints and like a paint thinner in like a cup, but you don't like mix them together. You just like pour each thing in, and then you like you can either like pour it on the canvas or you just like flip it over and let it go.
Oh,
and
really?
It all spreads out, and then you like put like a heat gun on it, and it makes all these little different bubbles and cells and stuff. And,
Oh,
like,
cool.
Yeah, it was like $30, and we got to like make 3 paintings, and
Oh, that's awesome.
now we have art for
That
our
sounds
house.
cool.
It's great.
So speaking of art,
fun.
my wife and I, when we first started talking about things we wanted to do, a gift for each other for our wedding. This is over 13 years ago. We wanted to get a canvas and then put body paint and then make love.
I knew that's where this was going. I knew that's where this was going.
I
God.
was for once it wasn't me.
I know. Look. Now here's the thing. All right, you want to have something unique in your home. Now I don't know that we would have put this in the living room for people to look at. It would have been a big space. My
Maybe in
wife
the bathroom or something. Somebody's taking a
mean,
picture.
it
Just
turned
looks
out-
Just
over.
like something we put in the closet, just bring out every once in a while when we're feeling.
Well, just don't tell people what it is.
Feeling
That's like, "What's
amorous."
that?" It's a painting.
Daddy, what's that? Don't look at that. Anyway, that came to mind. I don't know why I'm kind of messed up. Zach's like,
Zach's
what?
rubbing off on you.
Yeah, I know.
I'm always rubbing
You guys
off
are
on
rubbing
you.
off on me. Stop rubbing me, Zach. All right. So this is a great episode. This is actually going to be one of my favorites, even though we've had some great episodes. But in our topics today, we are going to be talking about conspiracies. Now, the reason conspiracies are so much fun is because not only are there some that are verifiable and have some truth behind them, but there's some that people just freaking make up. But that's what's awesome about conspiracies is I want to hear a conspiracy. I can't wait to hear a conspiracy that I've never heard of before that somebody brings up. That's what's really cool about them, is that somebody brings something up that nobody's ever heard of, and we all learn something. And then hopefully through it, and I love Joe Rogan's podcast, what he does, and Joe Rogan Experience, and there's a couple others, but that's what I love about it is he talks about so many different things on there.
I
You
hate
go,
Joe Rogan.
why do you hate him?
He's right up there with Guy Fieri for me. I have no specific reason to hate him, but if I ever see him, I'm punching him in the face.
I wouldn't do that to Joe Rogan.
Not a resident of Flavortown, man?
Joe-
I didn't know that.
Joe Rogan will knock your eyeballs sideways. He's one of those few guys you don't like that you have to just deal with.
Yeah, he's been practicing jiu-jitsu since he was like 16
Have you ever
years
seen his
old.
videos where he's kicking?
No.
Go in there and put Joe Rogan kicking drills.
Dude, he's got.
Oh my God. Yeah, he's no joke. He's been practicing martial arts and boxing and all types of different art for probably
Years
25, 30
yeah,
years.
yeah,
Back
for
when he
sure.
first became a
Not gonna
comedian.
lie though, don't care. I will punch him in the throat or die trying. Same way with Guy Fieri.
I don't like Guy.
I will.
I think you could
knock
take
them
Guy
high-
Fieri.
I will
Joe Rogan's
knock
not a
them
good
highlights
bet,
out.
but you could take Guy Fieri.
Maybe now. Maybe at one point Guy might have been able
I'll
to
tell you this
tussle,
right
but-
now. I would buy that pay-per-view.
That's something we
Guy
should
Fieri
do.
versus the
Just
world.
everyday guys just against stars and call them out.
It's like hobo fights. But
Yeah. Hobo fights are so sad too.
Hobo
You
fights?
guys are like hobo,
sad,
but
the
we give 'em a
toothless
sandwich
guys, and then
afterwards.
sandwich. It was so sad, man. Somebody led me to that. They're like, "Hey, have you seen these fights, hobo fights?" I'm like, "Hobo fights?" And like, "Yeah, it's these dudes that are homeless and they fight each other." I was like, "Oh, cool." I thought it was like these guys arranged to do it. No, it's some fight organization that went out and said, "Hey, homeless guy. Hey, homeless guy." I don't know
Like,
why
you
I
want this
grabbed
donut?
you guys, but hey, you want this donut, this sandwich? Punch him in the face. It was
they
really
do it.
sad.
And they do
Oh, they do it, yeah. Well, I mean, they fight anyway, but it's organized that way. It just doesn't feel right. It didn't feel right. I watched several of them, though.
Is that still going on? Is that like an
That's
ongoing?
still
They're just
So it
constantly
is,
like,
but
"Hey,
it's
man."
like underground now, like because they started getting a lot of
Getting a lot of
notice.
flack
Yeah,
for
a
it,
lot of
yeah.
flack.
It's
so,
Hobo Fight Club now. You can't
yeah.
we don't talk about it
yeah.
anymore.
I talk a lot about it.
So,
He's bad.
who's back? Who is it? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Okay. So we always start the show off with some interesting, just fun topics and everything. And so I wanted to go around the room when we're talking about what's going on in entertainment these days. What are we looking forward to? And this time,
Brought to you by Vanity.
No, I didn't actually look on Vanity this week. I actually just wanted to kind of see what you guys are looking at, what's interesting, what video games, movies, TV, binge watching you guys are doing. So we'll just go around the circle here.
Borderlands 3 comes out tonight. That's
Borderlands?
I almost canceled, just so you know. Last minute, 9:01.
Well, doesn't it come out at midnight?
At
9:01. They're pretty
Oh,
So
really?
I'm going to have to leave here in just
Is
a
that-
couple minutes.
Is that when the first time zone would get it? Is that why it's
I'm thinking
9:01?
so, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they don't want anybody playing it before somebody else.
Right. It's not fair.
I got it. What about you, Dimitri? Anything new on the entertainment horizon for you? You're involved in local theater, but I mean, is there anything being televised?
Rob
or?
stopped in and gave us one of those sponsorship things. That's
Yeah,
really cool. I
so
really hope you
we're-
guys get a lot of sponsors for that. I'm serious.
Yeah, we're getting sponsorships for our season. So we are about to announce our entire season of shows that we're going to be producing for youth theater for the whole year. We've got a play coming up this fall called Day 6. It's about the 6th day of creation. It's very funny. It was actually written by a high school theater teacher named Ed Monk, who taught two schools over from me, but he's like a critically acclaimed playwright.
Oh, cool.
We were always jealous because his kids won all the competitions because he wrote the plays for them, like specifically for the kids he had. I'm not bitter. It's fine. It's whatever. No, but we're doing that. We're looking for sponsors, which sponsorship comes with like ad space and features on our social media for your business, as well as tickets to the shows. So if you or someone you know is like looking for a way to advertise your business, let me know, because we're got a lot of ad space to sell. So.
Awesome.
And it goes to a good cause. It helps support youth theater and all that jazz.
We want to make sure we get that supported locally. Local arts is so important to the vibrancy of the community and stuff. So, Dimitri, along those lines, what do you, when you watch TV or movies, if you have time, what are you watching these days? You watching anything in particular?
Yes, I just started The Good Place, and I'm also about to finish The Good Place
Okay.
because it was
Why is
so.
everybody falling behind on this?
It's really
so
good.
I don't watch TV
Look,
much.
the way that I watch TV is like 19,000 people tell me you need to watch the
Right.
show. It's perfect for you, and I go no, and then.
You watch it
I'm
like, oh my
alone
god,
one
this
day,
is perfect
and
for
then
me.
I watched the same thing happened. Everyone was like, "Have you watched The Good Place yet?" And I was like, "No, that sounds dumb." And they're like, "Kristen Bell's in it. You love Kristen Bell." And I'm like, "Yeah, but maybe." Okay, fine. I'll watch one episode. It's probably not going to be that good. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, I have to go to bed. It's 2 a.m. and I've watched 7 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
It's so good, and I think what's awesome about it is that at its core, it's a show about moral philosophy that like literally walks you through like the history of and the teachings of like all the great philosophers and their like ideas about morality. But like it does it in a way that it's like entertaining and fun. Like I'm sitting there like, I'm like thinking about, and it like got to me. I've really been like, especially like with starting a business, like I've been thinking so much about like how to like keep a business practice like very ethical, and like even Rob was like, you've been watching The Good Place too much, you need to stop it. I got him hooked on it too. I was like, have you watched The Good Place yet? And he was like, no. And I was like, watch one episode.
Oh, that's cool.
He finished before me, so.
Awesome. So, Good Place?
It's really
good.
good.
It is really good.
Really, really good.
First time I binged it.
The humor is just impeccable. It's so funny.
And
That
that's
was created by the guy that made The Office, wasn't it?
I think he's
pretty
part
sure
of
it's
it.
It had great writers, I'll tell you that.
It's part of
very
it.
good.
Well, and you can tell a difference between that type of humor when it's that standalone humor, like the Office humor, and
It's very unique from other shows even. I mean, even those, you can tell it was written by, like, now that I know that it's written by somebody from The Office, like, that definitely, like, makes sense.
that Parks and Rec type of writing.
But it's not, it is, but it isn't. It's definitely not that style, but it's, like,
It's not as deadpan.
it's not deadpan. It's very, like, direct.
Is
I
it
don't know how-
quippy and like quick retort, or is it just?
There's a character named Janet.
I was
who's, like,
already going to bring up Janet. That's so funny.
She's like a character. She's just like hi.
you?
Like whenever you call her, she just like shows up. She's like, hi, I'm Janet, and she just like will say things. She'll be like, people will say things to Janet, and she'll be like, not a person. She just like comes in and like says things and corrects people. She, like
That's
she'll
a great
be like,
character.
Wow, what do you use?
She's one of my favorites.
Yeah. They'll be like,
think
what do
one-
you use for your skin? And she goes, not skin. And then she keeps going with whatever she was saying. It's just really, really funny. And she like says it. She'll be like,
Another
people will be
format.
like, I like you. Do you like me? And she'll be like, I'm incapable of liking people. And then that's it. I
Well,
think
really
really liking people.
We don't want to spoiler alert it too much for you. So
I'm just utterly shocked how many people have slept on this. I mean,
It was a really
I
good
got
show.
people in my office at work who are just now starting the show, binge watching the same.
I have not watched it once.
Does it have like cringy humor like The Office, or is it a
No,
totally different type of
Totally
humor?
different. Oh, it's so funny.
I don't think, and speaking of that, I don't think you could have that humor anymore. They asked Steve Carell, if they'd reboot The Office, if he'd come back, and he goes, "Look, you can't do that humor anymore."
Yeah, I rewatched The Office a few months ago, and several of the jokes in there that are just classic Office jokes, you could not do that today.
and it doesn't make it any less funny, but it lets you know kind of the world we're living in.
how much society has changed.
And
Well, it's like Mel Brooks. He's coming out with another. He's supposed to be coming out with another movie. It's already written, but he can't find.
is Mel Brooks still alive?
Yes,
Wow.
and he can't find any
Producers, or
Yeah,
just because people
of
think
his
it's going to
humor.
have backlash. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and so there's two sides. That my side, and I'm sure Zach's side is, F everybody. Let's just make a funny story.
You,
Let's
you
just
cannot fault humor.
well, and stop being so PC. Like I want people to entertain. So part of being honest in acting and theater and movies is addressing and bringing up things that we don't like to talk about. That's how we expose these things, and I think we're losing that in a lot of our art and a lot of stuff. So
That's why, like,
I kinda
Jon
think humor
Stewart
should be
and Stephen
untouchable.
Colbert. Is Stephen Colbert still doing a show? I know Jon.
anymore.
Yeah, see,
I
they're
mean,
both
he's doing
retired.
his show, but he stopped doing the.
Well, those guys were just great at political humor. It was like, hey, we're going to make this funny, but we're going to give you a level, balanced idea. We're going to
Right.
crack some jokes in there, and it
think
made
Stewart
people.
was better than Colbert.
Oh yeah, for sure. Stewart was Colbert's mentor, right, or something?
Well, he was on the show with him. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Colbert was on what was the name of that show?
So was
The Daily
Carell.
Show.
Daily Show.
Oh really?
Jon Stewart's show.
Yeah, Steve Carell and Stephen Colbert were the reporters for.
Interesting. Is that why they have that skit together
Carell
about the
was?
waiters
Yeah.
that don't, like are
Don't-
disgusted by
Really?
food?
Don't test me on comedy.
Oh, I'm just saying, I didn't know that.
Was that
I,
on
I
Jon
used to
Stewart?
watch
Have
that.
you seen the skit with Carell and
Yeah.
where they're disgusted by food? Is that they were working together? That's why that came about. That's interesting. I didn't know
Yeah.
the history there.
So it when we talk about entertainment, and I guess the reason I always like to start off the show with that is because we want to see what everybody's watching, but we also want to know where things are at in the topics of the world and things that are going on. So, Jonathan, anything you're watching or looking at these days?
Well, I've been keeping up with. I don't want to build it up too much in my head because I'm afraid that I'm going to build it up and it's not going to be as good. But have you guys been keeping up with the Joker, or Joaquin
Yes.
Phoenix Joker?
Yes,
movies
I
coming
have.
up?
Yeah.
I was hearing the other day that at whatever film festival they showed it at, it got an 8-minute standing ovation afterwards. Which again, like I'm trying really hard not to build it up,
Right.
but all the news that I'm hearing about it is kind of making it difficult. But I mean, that's
walking out too.
what's that?
When that was
People were
filming-
walking out.
No, when Joaquin was filming that, he would just leave. Like it became so overwhelming for him.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
would
to
just
be the
walk off
character.
set.
He's
Okay.
a super. He's a character.
Yeah.
He's so
Yeah.
into the part, and I get that. They say Christian Bale
Method
goes
as
through that
fuck.
too. They live within the character, so it kind of drives them nuts. But
Yeah.
So speaking of cool things, hey, let's look at your shirt this time, Jay. Everybody,
Yep,
if
get
you
it
watch
in
the
here.
show,
This is a
Jay
new segment
Johnson's
on the
our,
show.
our producer. Come on in, Jay.
No, let's
we
go.
want this shit
It's a segment on the show now. You have to show your shirt.
So what is it?
Ghost.
Ghost.
band.
It's a band. Okay.
They just released a song yesterday, and it's really good.
Okay. So is it alternative or what kind of music is it?
It's like heavy metal.
Huh?
It's
Metal.
like heavy metal.
Heavy metal. Okay. Jay is a super talented guy, and intelligent, and takes care of our camera and our producing.
a little light reading?
He wears. Oh, I start. Man, I'm gonna go over this in a second. But what I like about Jay is he moved back from the East Coast, or no, West Coast. My bad. Out on the West Side. And I had to do that. I don't know what's
you?
going on. I did. I really had to.
Now we're gonna have gangs
Right.
repping.
Seattle, what's up, Seattle? Portland. Anyway, Jay was out there working with a YouTuber, and then kind of conveniently, I was thinking about this show, and his mom actually is one of our favorite people, and she comes in occasionally, and started talking to her and said, "Oh, Jay's moving back," and so I quickly recruited Jay to see if he'd come in and do it. So he wears a different shirt every week, and so we want to check it out. Yeah, well, sometimes.
Eventually, he's gonna run out of shirts. He's gonna have to go out and buying a shirt before he comes
Yeah,
in.
the
or
bad
ordering
thing.
off Amazon
Yeah, the
a
bad
week
thing
in advance.
is eventually, he'll rotate back around and be like, "Oh, you already wore that one. We need to get a new one." But anyway, this time it's Ghost. It's a rock, I guess rock or alternative metal. Okay. And you're into now, Jay. You were talking about like you're like a what'd you call it, DJ? Like black metal DJ? What did you call it?
I just downloaded the DJing program and I have a lot of black metal, so I can.
Okay, so Jay's into black metal, which is are there some well-known black metal groups that I would know of?
Not that you would know of.
Okay, good.
I
But
can list off a few, but you probably won't.
no, probably not. Is Ghost one of those?
No, no.
You
Different
betray
There's a
your.
lot of different kind of metals. There's like black metal,
Death metal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a whole
And then
tier
they
of.
all overlap.
New metal.
Yeah.
And then there's overlapping parts of
Right.
So, what kind of metal is Corn, for example?
New metal.
New metal. That's new metal.
Slow down, Korn.
When Corn was out back in the '90s, is
Old
that new
metal is
metal?
like Black Sabbath.
Okay.
What's up?
So what's hard rock now? Is it still Metallica?
Rock.
I think it's like Billie Eilish.
That's not hard rock.
She hit #1 on alternative.
That's like pop, man.
She hit #1 on alternative.
Like, what is Billie Eilish?
Who is Billie Eilish? What does
She's
she
that
sing?
one, that bad guy.
She's a viner.
She's like 17, 18 years old, man. She's super creative, man. I'll give her. She's very artsy. and
What
like
is she?
that stuff.
She's a musician though, or what is she?
Yeah.
What is her official? Okay.
She's a singer, songwriter.
What's like a
musician.
real popular song?
Bad guy?
Bad guy.
Yeah, if you heard the melody for it, you
It's
know
a
that.
catchy guy. Make you want a something guy. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, I actually just okay.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
She's the one that's on her albums with like her eyes rolled back, so it shows the whites of her
Gotcha,
eyes, like
gotcha,
a real
gotcha.
kind of dark
She
magic
has
type
like a
stuff.
constant nosebleed in all of her music.
Yeah, what
videos.
is I don't know. Anyway,
I'm like, I don't really get it, but I'm into it. You
every
know, like, I
once
see
in a
her
while
video,
they
I'm like,
every once in a while there comes along an artist that is different, kind of stands out, and you know Gaga did her thing, and she's now Gaga's classic now. She's not even like
Yeah.
Wait, I
Wait,
don't
so
know
this
what she's doing. She needs to figure it out because Mama needs a new album.
Mama needs
Badly.
that.
I just
She'll
want
come
her
out
back
with something, I'm
to
sure.
Tony Bennett.
That was such a great time.
Was she
Did
like
you hear But
13 when she was
Beautiful?
doing Vine?
Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, something like
Because
that.
that,
Joanne.
Yeah.
you know, they
Oh,
discontinued
man.
that a while ago.
Poker face.
Yeah.
We're branching out, guys. We're having separate conversations.
So we're gonna get back to some of the topics. Zach, did I ask you what you're watching entertainment?
You did not.
Okay, what are you watching these days?
Actually, I don't have a show right now.
Really?
I'm
Okay.
in between shows. I'm still on some movies. Just going back.
Yeah.
Last night was The Goonies.
Oh, Goonies, that's always
Never
good.
died.
Classics.
You actually starred in that, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I was Sloth.
Hey, you.
Hey guys!
Rocky Road.
Rocky Road.
All right. What about you, Cody?
I've been binge watching animes lately.
Animes?
Per usual, yeah. Huge nerd.
Dude, I've watched anime before. Aren't they like all have like the same storyline?
Absolutely not.
Not
Really?
Good Lord,
Have you
there's
watched any like movies made by Studio Ghibli, like Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke?
I've heard of Spirited Away.
Those movies are incredible. I don't get really into anime, but
Isn't it like
I'm
Final
trying to watch
Fantasy?
as much
Isn't it
Ghibli.
like
as I
Final
can.
Fantasy
is
type
a
stuff?
video game.
No, it's a video game, but I mean, it's that real
It just depends on-
operatic type of
It
like
can be.
big thing.
It can be, absolutely. There's so many different types of animes. There's like... Yeah,
Oh, I've
I'm not
watched
gonna
One
go
Punch
into
Man
it.
as well.
One
One
Punch
Punch
Man is
Man
like
is
one of my
fantastic.
top 5 favorite animes.
He loves One
I
Punch
just
Man.
got into Hero Academia.
My Hero Academia
yeah?
is one of my favorites too. Dude, I'm telling you guys, I watch a lot of anime. But yeah,
So what
there's,
is it-
there's a lot of different types.
What is it about anime that you like so much?
For me, I am what you were talking about with like the Final Fantasy X. That's what I look for in anime. I like the fantasy side, the stuff, the power levels, the secret techniques.
take
You know what I mean?
Dragon Ball all day.
Anything. Like I like it all. If you can come up with a really cool system for like. I just like watching people fight. Like I don't know, it's really cool.
Okay.
Like, and if you can do it on a fantastical level and with an animation that's just some of their animation is breathtaking. Like it's really really cool. So to take a really cool concept and animate it really well, just
I feel like as a
really speaks to me.
genre, it's an incredibly creative genre.
Oh my
like,
God,
there's none
yes.
of them that are just like, here's a simple little
Right.
story. Like it. I mean,
Attack
maybe
on
there
Titan.
is. I haven't
Oh my
gotten
God,
that deep
Attack on
into it.
Titan's insanely
The crazy
cool.
part for me is when it comes down to anime, My Hero Academia is the first one I've watched that I didn't watch growing up.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I am a strict supporter of my Dragon Ball, not Z, Dragon Ball, my Sailor Moon, my Gundam, and stuff like, the late 80s, early 90s. And then My Hero kind of crept up my way.
Hey, holler at me. I can turn you on some of the other ones. I promise.
Have you seen One Punch Man?
I could not get into it.
Oh, you didn't like
You
it?
didn't watch
It
long
was a
enough
bald
then.
man fighting a
Oh
bug.
my God! You just wait, dude. That show gets so good. It's really good. One of my favorites. Sorry.
Just a good time. No, it's
We're
fine.
derailing again.
No, you're good. No, you're not derailing. That's what the show's about. You guys having conversations.
That was close enough.
You guys just want to drink. So, the reason that we're talking about this is, and this is stuff we want you guys at home to talk about, is, what are you watching? What are you enjoying these days? Share it with your friends and family. Get people to watch it. And that's how, when it's really good, we want to share it. When it's really bad, we want to share that too, because we don't want to waste people's time with stuff.
Oh, I'm going to answer Jay. I have not watched the new Invaders Zim movie yet, but I'm really looking forward to it. And yes,
what is it?
It's an old cartoon from like the early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
That a lot of people, especially like the emo scene, goth, that kind of, those people were like super fucking into.
So this will give you a little bit about how old I am. When I was younger, I smoked weed, and
what?
And I used to watch these old cartoons where it had the monkeys that hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, no, and they do the thing like this, and I would watch it and have all these trippy little, like, cartoons and things flying around, and it would have the devil's head floating around talking to the monkeys, trying to get him to do stuff.
I think you got some laced weed, Eric.
Yeah, that sounds very intense.
It was an actual cartoon. It's still out.
I believe in the cartoon.
I thought you were saying you were hallucinating.
Gotcha.
No.
Okay, that makes more sense.
There's a subset of people out there, and you don't like Joe Rogan, but he talks about this, is where they experiment with drugs to see what kind of trips it gives them, so they can talk about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he wants to open his mind up and experience stuff, and there's some fascinating conversations he's had with people that are in the subculture of using drugs. And I mean, the only drug I've ever done is weed. I've only smoked weed my entire life, and alcohol, but Coffee, yeah. Caffeine is everybody's drug, isn't it? Doesn't everybody hit caffeine?
Big fan.
Yeah, right.
That's like how
nicotine and caffeine, and that's the thing that we talk about. Dangerous drugs, when the most dangerous drugs are one we use every day. It's crazy. Caffeine and nicotine are the most dangerous drugs on the market.
So happy I'm not about that nicotine.
What are you watching?
I saw Kevin on the screen for a second, and I was like, why is Kevin on the screen on this football show?
Kevin
from The Office.
Oh, yeah.
We were just talking about it, so it's
Probably dropping chili.
Right?
Yeah, he's probably dropping chili. So, we talk about interesting things on the show, and my guests are here with me. This is Session, streamed live from Shaker's Bar downtown Cape every Thursday from 8 to 10 p.m. We want to make sure that if you want to do a sponsorship opportunity, we mention your show mention your business or your function throughout the show. We want to make sure
they might have a show.
They might have a show. We want to make sure that we can do that. You can contact us. Contact me through the Facebook page, and we'd be glad to try to work something out with you. Of course, when Dimitri gets a little farther along, that was just the darts. We'll get a little info out about what you're doing in community theater and everything else. And so I thought a few little interesting things before we get into our second segment, which is with conspiracies and the topics I gave you. I usually don't give the topics out to the folks watching beforehand, because I like to kind of be something they share with us. But I did kind of let them know about conspiracy. So I thought I was doing some light reading, and I was fascinated because I went out. I go to Barnes & Noble maybe once a month, twice a month, and I like to just kind of peruse and look through stuff. And often on the show we give opinions and we just kind of talk off the top of our heads. And I like to try to be. I need to be a little more fact-based, a little more statistically based sometimes. Sometimes I let my opinions run. So I thought there were some interesting things. So of course, the one thing I looked at, the New Philosopher, which is a magazine that you can get at Barnes & Noble. I actually bought 5 magazines that I found super interesting. This one's cool because it's all about death. And the reason I wanted to do this one as a fun topic, what an irony in fun topics is it talks about our mental, how we feel about death, what we think about it, how we deal with it. And so I'm just going to give you guys a couple things that we can throw around to talk about. But the worst of the disastrous deaths, according to New Philosopher magazine, and I thought this was fascinating, famine, which everybody knows is starving, deprivation of food, from 1958 to 1961, which, if my math is correct, is 3 years. Yeah, 1958, 61. Up to 43 million people died from famine in China. You believe that?
Oh, that's not that many.
It's called the Great Chinese Famine. 43 million?
That's a huge number, but in proportion to how many people are in China, I think is what he means.
I know, that's like the most, and I thought it was just fascinating on how many.
That is a terrifying number.
From floods, this is in China also. natural disasters and things don't like China. But 1931, up to 4 million people died from a flood. When we lose 10 or 12 people here, it's tragic. But you imagine 4 million. And then the Shenzhou earthquake, I hope I said that correctly. It's the most deadly earthquake in the history of the world, according to this magazine. It was in January 23rd of 1556. I didn't know they kept records.
1556?
Yeah, I didn't know they kept records. But it's 830,000 dead from that earthquake. Now, we talked about this the other day in the bar a little bit about if the New Madrid fault actually gave way, God forbid. But I think we'd probably lose more than that because it is such a huge fault.
Split the nation.
Then let's go to global pandemics that some of you guys may not be aware of. Anybody want to talk about any of that? Although I've kind of
staggering numbers, but
yeah, it is
Makes me
staggering.
hungry.
right?
Makes you hungry.
The famine.
So there's two things that you would think were taken care of in the world, and they're not. You've got malaria and tuberculosis, right? This country has eradicated many diseases that we've kind of watched out and dealt with because of our health care and our financial situation, but there's many places that haven't. So throughout the world, the leading global pandemics that are still active, malaria, and so far the death toll is from 80 to 250 million people from 1900. So that's when they started recording this for malaria, which of course is a mosquito delivered disease. And then the other one is tuberculosis, which back in one time in this country's history they had some TB issues, but the death toll is 1 billion from 1800 to present. 1 billion people TB, and there are still a lot of places in the world that are affected by TB, which tells you that there's some basic health principles and treatments that are not being followed in some countries, either because of financial situations, more giant
mats.
rugs, or giant mats are not being followed. So Jonathan, you're a well-read guy, and you kind of pay attention to the world. What's your opinion on the global pandemics that we're still dealing with in the world?
Well, I wanted to make a comment about when you were talking about that earthquake that happened in 1556 and been keeping records that long. I thought it was interesting because the tsunami that happened in Thailand, I don't even, like 2004 or something like that. Yeah, it was just interesting because I remember hearing about whenever that tsunami came, it destroyed a bunch of land, and then they found a bunch of signs that had just been buried by like time after time after time that said it was some warning saying do not build below this point. Like if you build below this point, you're going to be susceptible to a tsunami or a hurricane coming. Yeah, and it was just kind of interesting talking about them not keeping records. Like I wonder how many times Thailand had been hit in like medieval Thailand, and they're like, okay, we'll just make the general rule that you don't go down here.
Yeah.
And then got buried over time. So there was a bunch of houses down there whenever it happened, which is why that had such a high death toll.
Kind of interesting.
No, as far as it was malaria and tuberculosis, correct?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Were either one of those a huge deal? Are either one of those today a huge deal in the Western world, or is it a lot of
Third world countries?
Yeah, third world countries.
TB,
Where's the main problems there?
Well, at one point in the mid to late 1800s, and a lot of times when we had people from other countries coming to this country, TB became an issue because tuberculosis, for example, it was something like if you went to Ireland Ireland at one time before they had some modernization had a lot of basically the air was moist all the time. The seawater came in, it was always moist, and people were sick a lot. They called it Irish cough. And so I think in Ireland and England and then also in the United States, I know England had they dealt with Black Death, of course. But
I was actually going to say, I'm really surprised bubonic plague wasn't on there somewhere.
well, it is in there. It is in there. It just wasn't actually one of the
Staggering ones.
stop ones, yeah. I mean,
I think bubonic plague is known because it was such a quick,
Right.
just such a short span
Yeah.
of time, just wiped out like half of Europe or half of England. I forget. I
Yeah,
think it's
there-
half of Europe's
well,
population, wasn't it? Yeah.
There was an author that was writing at that time, and his writing is still around. I can't remember his name, but he actually said that during that time that you could leave town for a couple of days and go out into the countryside and come back, and half the town would be dead in a day or two.
Yeah,
And it was such
it's just weird.
rampant death. But the reason I'm talking about this is we want to always point out what we're thankful for in this world. In this country, we are so lucky and fortunate to have the sanitation and health care and the things that we do have in this country, and I want to make sure that we're always thankful for them. But Cody, you read a lot, you pay attention to the world, and anything jumps out crazy with you with those stats or anything?
I mean, it's a staggering number, but I guess when you think about, I mean, if you put the amount of natural cause deaths in there, then and compare it, I mean, there's been billions of natural cause deaths since then. So if you kind of compare it, I know it's not as big, but hearing that number makes it seem kind of staggering whenever you think about it. Even if it is overspread over like a couple hundred years on a couple of those, that's still a crazy amount of number to fall to one thing.
How does tuberculosis spread? Is it like saliva
lungs,
or
I
is
think,
it?
isn't it?
What is it?
It's
in the
through.
lungs.
It's through. It can be through the air with close contact, or through bodily fluids. So it can be a sneeze or a cough, and we touch. Typically, the way but it's a lung-borne disease.
Didn't they call it consumption back in
Yeah,
the day?
yeah, there was consumption. So Zach, you're a history buff. You pay attention to a lot of that. Is there anything that stands out about those stats, or another one that you want to bring up?
Based on the time frame, no. I mean, like, sure, everybody hears the 1 billion, but I mean, this was a epidemic. It was a pandemic for sure. When even on our homeland, I mean, consumption was a huge thing during the 1800s.
Yeah.
Even I know chronic carriers to this day who will actually test positive for TB.
Yeah.
You know, and that's crazy when you look at that. I mean, obviously they're not going to go around.
You know, that's the one thing, and I'll tell this from being a prison guard, that's the one thing they still test for with the staff and the inmates. Every 3 to 6 months they test for TB. Every 3 to 6 months. Just to make sure they don't have a case that kind of got underneath the mat and get in there and spread. So
Yeah, that's pretty much a cesspool at that point. So.
it is, man.
Is it dirtier? Does it spread more in like unclean environments?
Well, it's not
Is that a
necessarily
factor or
that it's an
not
unclean environment. It's that many people that
Or
close.
yeah,
packed
not
that
really.
can't
Yeah,
leave,
yeah. That's
you know
what I mean. Like
Like,
when that many people are
Yeah.
that close, like it can't stay.
And I think that's why
clean.
places like China and India and Pakistan, places that are kind of
Everything's
shoulder to
clustered
shoulder, so to
together.
speak.
Yeah.
That's why you'll see a lot more when you see pandemics and things. Those are places that it's worse. Now, when you're in a country like Russia or Norway, somewhere with
Cold, first of all.
sporadic
Spacious,
cold,
and yeah.
you will have a far less, and so you'll see that go. But I was fascinated, and I'll let one of you guys, if you guys want to read this, but this magazine's fascinating because not only does it talk about how we die, but it talks about our acceptance of death and what we're prepared for, and it talks about how we feel. In other words, we fear death, but we didn't fear it before we were born because we didn't exist. The only reason we fear death is because we existed. It's kind of a weird, balance. But I will say that the two leading causes of death in the world, and specifically this country, is stroke and heart disease. So, and those are health factors and other things like that. So, Dimitri,
All of those are increased by cigarettes.
Right.
drinking cigarettes, bad food, all of that.
Oh, so everything I ingest.
You're right, right. But if you listen to some of the ageism experts, the people that talk about aging and stuff throughout the world, there has not been, believe it or not, a correlation between smoking and death other than cancer. So in other words, if you can get through your life with smoking, it doesn't affect your longevity unless you get cancer. Or emphysema, I guess.
Yeah.
But you can live for years with emphysema. But Dimitri, is there anything out there that you're fearful of as far as pandemic wise? I mean, I have kind of a small fear of certain things about what could spread, what could happen.
Well, I mean, one thing that is like more an annoyance of mine is like this new movement of like not vaccinating people, because we talk about like tuberculosis and we're like so grateful that like tuberculosis isn't like rampant and like we're not worried about all of these viruses that other places in the world like worry about.
Vaccinate your children.
Vaccinate your kids, please. If you're watching this and you haven't,
Hey guys, you know how we got rid of tuberculosis?
I was reading.
Can you say it a little louder for
Right.
people?
vaccinate your kids.
Yeah, and speak slower too. They really need all they can get.
I was reading the other day a bunch of countries that have like been able to declare for several years that they had completely eradicated measles because of this anti-vax movement. A lot of them cannot officially declare it anymore because there's too many cases.
There was a measles outbreak. There was like 2 or 3 of them this year in places that haven't seen measles for like 50 years.
Yeah.
One of them's California.
So like, let's vaccinate, But I think really the thing that scares me right now is antibiotic resistant bacteria, because I think if anything is going to wipe us
That's
out,
scary,
like
dude.
cause a zombie apocalypse, like it's that.
Zombie
Because
apocalypse.
they're finding these like super bacteria that are just able that like because they multiply so rapidly, they're able to mutate and evolve at a pace that like they can just outpace whatever we do. So they're having these problems now in hospitals where like they will create these like they'll come up with a disinfectant for hospitals that gets rid of 99.99% of all bacteria, but that 0.01% that lives, they can't kill it with anything, and so it becomes the lead. It becomes like the leader.
Well, and see that's interesting. Talking about how things spread and how things stay around. The interesting thing is the resistant diseases and afflictions or diseases and colds and things like that. It's interesting because I read something about how they actually the disease or the sickness or whatever, how it overcomes disinfectants and bacterial antibiotics. They've studied it in labs, and the disease or the thing itself actually attacks, and then it learns from what happens to it as the other parts that are attached. So in other words, if you have a bunch of cells and a bunch of disease attached together, the part that's not dying from the antibiotic or whatever it is sit back here and it's learning and it's watching, and then it adapts.
Recording information and
it's
like,
recording
okay, so
information, and so when it gets confronted with it, it's already started practicing on beating it with a new batch of itself. It's really weird. It's like you take a group, and then this part's getting attacked, and then this part over here is learning what's happening in this group, and then it has little resistant children over here that knows how to fight. So that's why we have to constantly, but that therein lies the rub, as Matt would say, is that's why we have to keep vaccinating ourselves. And as much as you want to say, what's up, guys? As much as you want to say that some people are worried, and it's for religious reasons and for health reasons. They think that vaccinating your children causes Down syndrome and learning disabilities and things like that.
There's a lot of government conspiracies too.
There is, and that's why we're going to be doing conspiracy tonight. And then I'm glad it kind of came to that. But not to discount someone that feels that way, because maybe they believe that that's what it is. But there is a lot of volition. There's a lot of truth in what you said. Is there's a reason this country has eradicated so many different diseases. Is because we vaccinated, because we were, and when you vaccinate, you're injecting a little bit of that funk into your body, so your body fights it off.
It's kind of like how you were just talking about the parts that's not being attacked is learning.
Right.
Your body realizes it's like, okay, I see this. It's a small amount, so it knows how to beat it, and then it remembers that, so then it can do it.
And that's why things like Ebola and those type of really aggressive things, they are you almost can't treat them because they're so violently aggressive. Right. In other words, anything you put in there, it eats it. Yeah. And then it becomes fuel for that thing, and it moves on and gets faster.
That's another thing that's really scary. Sorry,
there was almost a giant Ebola outbreak in my hometown.
Speak up, I can't hear.
In my hometown, there was almost a giant Ebola outbreak, and there's a book about it called.
In your hometown, there was almost an Ebola.
The town next to mine. Yeah. So it was this book called The Hot Zone. I think it's called The Hot Zone. But
The Hot Zone. I've read that.
They were studying these monkeys in this warehouse. So that happened in Reston, Virginia, like maybe 5 miles.
And then
from
one
where
of the people in the lab got something with the monkey and then spread it. Yeah.
Well, and then they buried the monkeys that they'd been testing Ebola on. They buried them out back, and the virus got into the water. Yeah. Out into this stream out back, and it got into the water system. That happened like 5 or 6 miles from my house.
Wow.
They didn't think about that beforehand.
Right.
Like maybe we shouldn't bury these.
Well, a bunch of things went wrong. Yeah, there were like a bunch of things that went wrong, and like one of the people got infected, and like the monkeys all died. And,
I feel like especially when there's disease involved, wouldn't you burn those bodies?
Yeah, it's just like I understand enough about how soil, just water moving.
There was a lot that went wrong.
Well, see,
now, great.
But now when you burn, you have to burn them in a contained area because of the vapors and the smoke.
But we know that. Like, why wasn't that done?
It just seems like that should have been like, hey, maybe we shouldn't bury these in the ground.
Right. Well, it's the same thing that happened with avian bird flu, right? It wasn't because we weren't having sex with birds. We weren't eating raw birds. It was getting into our soil and our water. Yeah. Then it was spreading that way because the farmers that had these animals were killing them and then burying them in the soil. And of course, then the wash off from the water would get down into our streams and our lakes, and so it's sick. And that's why now in the state of Missouri, I don't know about the entire nation, but I know that there's a law against having slaughterhouses upstream from any major town or anything. So you have to have their own. I don't remember what they called a pond or the lagoon, but they have to have their own water area to be able to dump into, and that's something that it's contained. So like the place off of the highway off of 55, and I can't remember, Fruitland Dress Meats or whatever. You'll notice there's a pond behind there. That's their dump off pond.
Do they create those usually, or do they find a place where
they create that, and that's where the runoff from the slaughterhouse goes into there.
Interesting.
And it's contained in that area, and that's part of the. I don't know if it's Missouri or federal, but that's what that is. So,
one of the scary things about diseases, I think, is that whenever if a disease outbreak happens, you're the ones coming up with the cure for it, but you're also eligible to be infected.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a race against time kind of thing.
Yeah.
If the great minds keep succumbing to the disease, there's less and less people to make this cure. And there's a really cool game you guys have maybe played. It's called Plague Inc. And you make your own viruses and you try to spread it across.
That's a game?
It's a game.
It's so fun.
It's
That's
really
gross.
fun.
Well,
you're the
it sounds
virus,
stupid,
so
but it's super
you
fun.
plan. You're just like, okay, where's a good place to get infected?
Right.
Like, here's a clustered country, so you pick. All right, it's going to start here,
and then
you'll see like somebody on a plane.
And you pick how.
Be like, where's the next place going to go?
fun.
USA. So you'll see them on a plane, this infected person fly over, and then it's like, 44
What is the name
cases
of
of
that?
this.
Plague Inc.
It's very fun.
But it's both fun,
Yeah, you
but
get
also
it.
a terrifying
It's
thing.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's on your
fun.
phone.
It is.
It's fun. It really is, but it's also scary to
Let's
think
train
this
the
could be a
terrorists.
thing. Well, I mean,
you're
you
playing-
can't.
you're
you
playing,
can't,
like, as-
you're playing as the virus.
virus.
You're not like
I know.
spreading the
That's
virus. You are the
freaking
virus. It's scary.
petrifying.
It is. It's
But
scary.
as you're going, like some countries, it'll be like USA just developed a vaccine, and so like less and less people. So you have to try to where's the next
racing
best
against
place
the
for me to
cure.
go? And you're trying to
That is
infect
demented,
the entire world.
guys.
It's messed
You don't
up, but it's
realize
fun.
how crazy that is.
It is, but it's really fun. I promise.
You are the disease.
And you try to kill the entire planet. You
Oh
try to
my-
kill the human
Yeah,
race.
you win if you
Nobody-
infect
yeah.
everybody.
That
It's
is-
like extinction, plague.
Okay. The world has come to that now, I guess. Let's train ourselves on how to.
You're saying this. You're gonna go home and play this game, and you're gonna come back
Yeah.
next week and be like, okay, guys, you're right. That game
I
was
messed
really
up.
fun.
That is what's going to happen too. Because I just thought about it. I'm like, oh, you get it on your phone. Mm-hmm. Where can I attack?
I think it's
first?
only an app. It's not a video game.
Always
is it?
start in Africa.
I'm taking
Always
out
start in
Canada. Taking out Canada. They never have disease. But anyway, I guess that got up. So what's interesting is as we go along, and I saw our musical guests are here, and I guess they get set up here in a minute. But we're going to go ahead and go right into our second segment, the conspiracy segment, because it's going to be a lot to cover. So we want to get into it. And I'm going to bring up my first one that actually kind of is a good segue from the animals and disease and all of that. And I'm going to talk to everyone, and in case you guys have never heard of this before, I want you to look it up. A place called Plum Island, New York. I don't know if you guys have heard of Plum Island before.
I think so.
Okay, so the Hot Zone, for example. The Plum Island is mentioned in the book Hot Zone. Plum Island is less than 100 miles from New York. Now, I read
City or just the state in general?
this state, but New York City specifically.
Okay,
it's like
gotcha,
off the coast of New York, somewhere between New York and New Jersey. It's out there somewhere. The thing about Plum Island, and if you guys don't know this is a governmental island. It's basically owned by the government. It manufactures diseases and tests them on animals on this island. This is a true place. This is not a made-up place. It's like Area 51 for governmental experimentation. Basically, they experiment with bubonic plagues and syphilis and smallpox and
Is that
Ebola.
where a lot of our vaccines come from? Is that
That's where a lot of them come from. They experiment on animals, and so the ironic part is this is like a controlled Chernobyl. In other words, it's not been a nuclear blast, but it's basically a place where animals are used for the betterment of mankind.
Yeah.
Now, this is a place people can be like, oh, there's no way. This is a place you can look at. You go on YouTube, and there is so much stuff about Plum Island on there. There's interviews with former employees, and then we talk about the conditions of Plum Island. There are interviews with government officials that used to be in charge of watching the place and kind of how it is, and it's only 100 miles from a major metropolitan area. And the reason that I thought it was conspiracy-wise very interesting is I'm talking about Plum Island. I knew you would know where that was. Is because the runoff from these buildings and the things that they do makes it into the open water. And so the worst part about this is back after World War II, and the Nazis were being captured and were being taken care of. A lot. We actually, the United States actually found Nazi doctors and brought them to Plum Island.
Oh yeah, that's Operation Paperclip.
Yeah.
Was that involved in that?
That's part of that.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And so they were testing diseases and fertility drugs and all types of really nasty, gross stuff on this island on animals. And we had Nazi doctors that used to work for Hitler on the island back in the day, and they were working on Plum Island. Now, this is actually real, but it's also, there's a lot of conspiracies about it. Now, one of my conspiracies about this specific place is that, you know that person.
I think I know her.
You know her?
Yeah, I've seen her around.
I'll introduce you later.
All right, cool. I appreciate it.
I think she likes you. The conspiracy part about this is that, as I'm big into conspiracies, but there was a guy that wrote it was a reality-based nonfiction mixed with fiction about Plum Island. What happens if one of the doctors happens to bring something back with them? Because they take the ferry and they go back to New York.
Or if like an animal.
Oh yeah,
escapes,
the Isle
like,
of Dr.
it's not
Monroe. I saw that movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, and that's the thing. That's the other part of the conspiracy. No, that's the other part of the conspiracy is on Plum Island, you don't know because you can't go onto the island if you're just a generalized person. Yeah. But they believe that there are hybrid animals on this island that are running around, and they believe if at certain people have taken their boats near the shoreline, and you could see abnormal types of animals.
Yeah.
Different types of, they think they're buffalo or cows.
Are they mixing genes, or is it just
It's
injecting them with
everything.
diseases?
It's genetic
so just
manipulation.
okay,
It's any
gotcha.
kind of experimentation because this is sanctioned by the U.S. government. So it's controlled, it's confined, and they're able to basically do what they want. So these scientists and these doctors on this island, along with other employees, security, and everything else, this is the scary part. There was one set of buildings that was destroyed by a storm. Think about that. Washed away by a storm. So they rebuilt farther inland onto the island. But there's actually a place on YouTube you can go, and there are people that go fish in the waters outside of Plum Island, and they catch these monster fish. And they joke about it. Ha 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 ha! It's funny. And it's the same thing you say if you ever see. I used to watch some video on when they went to Chernobyl recently, and they go and they look in the waters, and there's like 8-eyed fish and all these different manipulated things. The fish off of Plum Island, it's not nuclear. It's other stuff. So it's hard to test for that stuff.
Yeah.
They're catching these huge, crazy looking fish. And it's almost like being on steroids, they're muscled up.
It kind of makes me
and
wonder,
big.
like with chickens, how they'll put steroids and stuff to just make
Oh, yeah.
chickens way bigger.
Yeah,
They can't
'cause
even walk on their legs.
Chicken breast. Some of these places you get chicken breasts, they're like this big.
Yeah.
Well, the chicken breasts aren't that big.
Yeah.
And so they're giving them things to take. And so my whole point to this conspiracy is this is a real life place, but there's so many stories that have been taken out of that. So I just want to go around real quick and talk about it. Have you heard of Plum Island, Zach? Yeah. What did you hear? And what
I
did you
heard
think?
about this place. Now that you told me about it, I've heard about this
You
place.
have
before,
heard about
I just
it?
didn't know it was called Plum Island.
Yeah, Plum Island, New York.
We're on the same page.
Okay.
If I start talking, it's
Yeah,
going to be
yeah.
repetitive.
What about you, Dimitri?
I think I'm gonna go look this up because
It's fascinating, man.
When I saw that we were doing conspiracy theories, I was like, yes, because I just
Same.
think they're all wild. I don't know. I think that's I want to go look it up and figure out what the truth is.
There's so much. It'll scare you.
I don't-
It will freak
see,
you
but
out.
That's what I love about these things, especially the creepy ones where it's ooh, there's crazy things.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that have a what if scenario.
Uh-huh.
Those are my favorite. What if this is they're really doing everything that they say that that people say that they're doing there.
Yeah.
Because then it makes me worry. Okay, so there's that much information about this place out there.
Yeah.
You can go to it. Where it is on the map. That sounds like the perfect storm for some supervillain to come along and just
Exactly.
steal a bunch of stuff off the island, blow the island up. I don't know. Do something to get whatever's going on in there out of there.
You just made a new conspiracy.
Yeah,
Way
someone,
to go, Dimitri.
they're gonna get whatever's in there and they're gonna get it out of there and use it against whoever they want.
I
Yeah.
just saw Jurassic Park.
There you go.
We got all these big
Well, no, I
fish.
mean, but speaking of Jurassic
Outbreak.
Park, you're speaking of stuff like that. When we talk about, I read a lot about clones, and while we're reading about this, and part of the human endeavor is to try to survive. That's part of every species' endeavor is to survive. And part of conspiracy theories and genetic manipulation and DNA manipulation is being able to prolong our species. And so you're talking about what somebody could do. There are drugs and things out there on that island that not only could destroy a race, but it could make super races of people. And we don't want a bunch of super. I mean, we saw what happened with Hitler when he was trying to develop his
We can
super
barely handle
soldiers.
different colors. I don't think we can handle super races.
Exactly. Until we get to a point where we can accept each other as we are and be okay with it, we probably shouldn't be
I've seen the
messing.
X-Men. I know how this turns out.
Mutants.
Not good.
Mutants.
Finds a way.
Yeah. Life
So-
finds a way.
Have you ever heard about? I'm gonna go to Jonathan. Have you ever heard about the Russian sleep experiment?
Yes. I mean, I've read the creepypasta on it. I don't.
That's exactly
is that
the
whole
one, but I
thing?
did some
Okay,
more
yeah.
research on it.
Is that based on anything? I thought it was just a completely made
No,
up
it's
story.
true. It's true.
The one
I
with
don't
the
like
people
knowing
in, like,
that.
that room and they're,
They
like,
lock them in a
up
room,
forever.
like
Yeah.
12
There's, like,
people.
There's like the lights, and then like by the end, there's like
They're like taking feces and covering the windows and
eating
just
their own
speaking into the
body.
microphones.
people
Yeah,
just
it's
go crazy.
Yeah.
it's that's
And then
creepy.
one guy was talking to someone in the room, and when they looked in, there was nobody in there, but he was having a real conversation. And the guy said that there was somebody in the room with him, and he was having like an outer mind experience.
Yeah.
So they were doing what sleep deprivation does to people, and they were experimenting with it. Now,
In that, it's been a long time since I've read it. They gave him a drug that made it to where they couldn't sleep or something, right? Or were
Right.
they like pumping gas in the room or something
they
like that?
gave him a drug initially, and then they pumped gas in the room to keep them awake.
Okay, yeah.
And these guys went 6, 7, 8 days with no sleep at all.
Yeah.
Literally could not fall asleep. And so they were studying the effects of lack of sleep on human beings and
It's
seeing.
kind of insane that you'll literally die. Like it's
Yeah,
kind of
it
crazy
is.
that not sleeping will make you
11
die.
days.
Like yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be about 11 to 12 days for some. And
that's
for
it?
each person, it's different. Some people can like I know I can go. I've gone 3 days without
Not a
sleep
challenge
before.
a lot of people want to take.
No, it's a terrible challenge because the
I
truth
can stay
is,
up
I
for
could not go
13
long without
days.
sleeping.
the truth is sleep is restorative and it heals us, and that's something that we don't talk a lot about. When the
It
doctors
also
talk,
clears our cache for our brain. You
Yeah.
need that. Like
doctors talk about the effects of sleep and how important it is to get a good night's sleep, because the REM cycle is our body's natural healing mechanism, and it's that's why a lot of times when people use hallucinogenic drugs, our body goes into this catatonic, like trance-like sleep, and we tap into that REM way deeper than, like Joe Rogan talks about.
Yeah.
DMT. You tap into that really deep part of your brain, and things are different. And the part is, you don't know if you really don't know if it's real or not, but you feel like you're in touch with stuff. But this Russian sleep experiment, talking about conspiracies, it's supposedly true, but of course everybody thinks conspiracies have a tinge of truth to them.
Yeah.
It's
But
like DMT is like that's the stuff that your brain releases when you die, isn't it? Like the
Yeah.
that
Oh
makes you think
yeah.
that your
Yeah,
life's
that's what.
flashing
Yeah,
before
that's
your
what a
eyes,
lot
yeah.
of people that say they saw a light. It's because a lot of DMT
Yeah.
just floods your brain whenever you start dying.
Yeah, and that's really what a lot of the hallucinogenic drugs do, is they tap into parts that release that make the body release more of those chemicals that gives us euphoria.
I think with a lot of psychedelics, they make areas of your mind that don't usually
open
communicate
up new
start
pathways.
communicating.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's when people, when you kind of get like a system overload.
Well, and that's
And
true.
you can develop tics. You can develop like nervous habits. You
Yeah.
can gain anxiety.
Because you can tell the
like-
effect. Somebody that does
Yeah.
a ridiculous, like just a constant ridiculous amount of psychedelics, you can tell the effect. It changes,
Yeah.
it restructures your mind and makes you act and you're not the same person you had been when you were a little
Well,
kid.
and it's the same thing with like doing ecstasy. There's scientific medical proof that long-term use of ecstasy eats holes in your brain. It actually takes part of your brain out. And I've never used the drug, but I know based on some of the research I've done, they talk about that. So it's the fascination with learning about the brain, and this is the thing is, I believe truthfully, and this is a conspiracy, but I truthfully believe that if we could tap into those parts of our brain that we don't use, I believe there's healing aspects. I believe there's restorative parts of our brain that can completely heal us.
I think that's what stuff like meditation, I think meditation is very good for the psyche. Like,
Yeah.
you eat well to keep your physical body healthy, and I think stuff like meditation, you need to keep your mind well, like in a good state of mind all the time. And I think that's what it is you're tapping into just like
Well, I
different
mean,
areas of the brain that
we
a lot of
only
people
use
don't go
what
into.
10% of our brains.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of crazy theoretically? But isn't it kind of crazy that like like at this point, like we've come a pretty long way since we kind of developed the sense that we can only tap it. Isn't that crazy that we throughout time haven't like slowly unlocked some of that?
It makes you wonder,
what potentially could happen if you did unlock more of your brain?
I mean, you saying like allegedly to that, I kind of teeter on that because it makes me wonder from an evolutionary standpoint, why did our brains develop to the size that they are and to how much if we're only using 10% of it?
Right.
You know, like that's what I don't understand about that.
I've read a little bit about that, and what
that's a conspiracy
that
theory.
Idea of the 10%, I think, has to do with like what percent of our brain we use for
at
our
any
conscious
given time.
process. But there's
so
kind
there's
of
just
like
a bunch
what
more.
What percent of your computer are you using when you watch a YouTube video? A small percent. How much of the computer is still running to just like keep the computer running? The rest of it. And there's actually a really good TED Talk that this guy did. He studied why animals have brains, and 90% of the reason why we have a brain is to move. It's for movement, because movement is ridiculously complicated.
It's all about function.
Like there's this jellyfish
just like reach in and
that
grab
when it gets ready, it like moves around as like a or maybe it's like a coral or jellyfish is in that family, and like as a baby it moves around, and when it finds a good spot to settle down and it's like done moving, it sits there, and the very first thing it does is it eats its own brain because it doesn't need it anymore. It's not going to move anymore.
That's interesting.
It just doesn't. So that's what I think. Like what I've read about that whole idea is just that like our brains are like computers, and there's a lot of like
it's like 80% is going on underneath the surface.
Because there's so much going on in here. Like
you open up your task manager, and walking's taking up a pretty solid amount of your processor.
Because I mean, even just for me to like move my hand like this, I'm moving like so many muscles.
Right. And that's true. And think about all of the involuntary things that our body does all the time. Our heart beating, that's a mind connection. You got to have that connection. Heart can beat without the mind, but to effectively do its job, you have to have a mind connection with it. Same thing with your spine. The messages from your neuropathy in your spine, that's all brain generated. And so
it's telling every cell in your body at any given time exactly what it should be doing.
Yeah.
That's like you can see it in like toddlers, because toddlers will reach out something, their arm will go back and forth, and it's like a missile. It's like a what are those called where they're going for the
guidance.
Yeah, like a guided missile,
yeah.
and they'll correct. They're just like, okay, I'm going a little bit off course, so I'll correct. And you can see it in a toddler when they're trying to grab something, their brain being like little to the left, little to the right, there it is, and pick it up. And like you can see that forming, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So that
takeaways do test on children.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get to.
Well, and therein lies a lot of things that we in life in general. Where do we draw a line where human experimentation? You know, for us to truly cure diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and things like that, we have to experiment on human beings. Animals cannot. Even apes, who have the nearest to our spine and our brain set up, they have the nearest to us. But where do we draw a line? In fact, if you want to do testing, and if you look like the Island of Dr. Moreau,
right.
that's a fictional tale based on real experimentation.
Right.
Is there a possibility of crossbreeding a human and an animal? You take the strength. You remember what was that silly movie with Rob Schneider?
The Animal.
The Animal, where he was like he had like cheetah and this and that. He had like it was terrible. But the truth is it possible though?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. If you get right now, they're working
Hybrids.
on clones in labs. Could you genetically manipulate and put?
I mean, we're making hearts out of pigs' hearts now. And
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah,
so.
we're doing such ridiculous stuff that little concepts like that, it's like,
Right.
it's
It's
pretty
not
likely
too bad,
we'll
I
probably
guess.
figure that out,
I
or we're close.
think whenever it comes to,
Are you guys ready to play?
I think that
You guys want to play?
when it comes to
You give them a break if you want to play. All right, get set up.
Crap, I just like.
No, you got to play right over here. I'm sorry. You're going to sit right up here on here, and he'll turn the camera to you.
Whenever it comes to like testing
It's
on
acoustic.
humans, I feel like if you're testing for let's say Alzheimer's, which is a degenerative disease for your memory, that kind of thing, it can be fatal a lot of times. I think if you're testing to cure that, you would obviously look towards the people who already have it, and like it's this or nothing, you know what I mean? Like if I can help or if it can possibly cure me, like I think that's who you look for first. I think what I don't like is the people that like intentionally inject a disease or something into a person so that they can test on it. I don't like that. You know what I mean?
I don't like
that's
that
not
either.
cool. But if you're gonna try to cure a disease, I think you turn to the people who have the disease
Yeah,
first.
I mean, if it's something
all
not
or
like
nothing, you know
Alzheimer's
what I
where
mean?
you can consent and they're just like, hey, you've
Right,
got this disease.
right,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, I'm all about that. But yeah, it gets
But not
gets
if
to
you're
a shady area
putting
sometimes.
a disease in somebody
Yeah,
just to
like
try
back
to
in the
get
day
more
with
stuff on it.
mentally ill people, they just be like, okay, well, let's experiment on
Right.
them because
Let's
nobody's
just
gonna
shock their
listen to them.
brains a
We'll just
bunch.
say, hey, they're crazy. Like,
Yeah.
they're not. Yeah.
So you are watching Session Stream live from Shakers downtown Cape. We do this every Thursday from 8 to 10 p.m. My guests are here: Zach Mazade, Cody Essick. I want to say it right this time. Gautier. Gautier.
Yeah.
Jonathan Gautier.
For now.
And Dimitri Gann. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
I got Dimitri and the Gann.
you got it all.
All right, cool. So we're going to get we have a musical guest here. He's going to be up here in just a second, but I want to go right now to you. I see that you have some recorded information here, and I'm always fascinated when someone takes that much time and sits down, because we means you did some work. So Tesla's super interesting. All right, so let's have you go ahead. We want to be able to run through. It's got about an hour left. I want to be able to run through these. So give us your top conspiracy, something that you think is going to be something that people find interesting, and we'll talk through it.
I did. Well, first, one of the first that I wrote down was Epstein, just because that's a huge story right now. Like that, a lot of conspiracies are popping up around that. I did 3 though. I have one of them, which is the Mandela effect, which I assume you might be familiar with. That like reality is constantly shifting. Some people remember how it had been.
Right.
And my last one. Have you guys heard of Last Thursdayism?
I have not.
There's a very large
Educate
conspiracy
us.
that everything was created last Thursday. And like it was created with the image of being like billions of years old. So like even light that had already left stars and is on its way here, like everything started last Thursday. So
Is last
we're
Thursday
a weekend
is
right
that,
now.
Is that just so we're on the weekend right now?
Well, yeah, we're 1 weekend since today is Thursday. It all started last Thursday, and just it's a conspiracy, but it's more of like a philosophical question, kind of saying. Because if somebody said that and you're like, everything wasn't created last Thursday, I have all these memories. It's like, okay, well, what if it was created and you had all the memories? Like, disprove it. Like, can you say it's not? Do you know for a fact everything wasn't created last Thursday?
That's
so it's kind of just to make you question how sure you can really be about your reality. And then I think a part of it, like when it was started, I think a part of it was as a counter to general creationism, of people being like, oh, well, the Earth is 6,000 years old, but it was made to look like it has all this age. So I think part of it is a counter to that, being like, okay, well, who's to say it wasn't made last Thursday? Like how can that's just as likely as it being if it's made at any point in time and just given to look like there's a lot of age, then it could have been made.
So in other words,
last Thursday.
the things we know that existed past a certain point, it's all just redone so we see it that way.
Well, yeah. It was the theory is that everything was created. We don't know how. It's not like there was a god or an entity or whatever, but just somehow everything started last Thursday. And the memories you have of 10 years ago, you were given that. Like as soon as you popped up, you had all those memories. Fossils, books that were written, back in Moby Dick.
That's kind of cool.
Is it?
A lot of sci-fi touches on it, as well as, the Hitchhiker's Guide.
That's exactly where my mind went. Thursday.
Hitchhiker's
Never quite did
Guide.
get the hang of Thursdays.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, you're asking last Thursdays, and I'm like, it sounds familiar, I don't know what it is, and then when you started explaining, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, no, he references it a bunch in what is his name? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Douglas
Adams.
Adams,
Yeah.
That's cool. Good, interesting.
But yeah, I thought that'd be an interesting one to start with.
Just like 42. Just someone had to say.
So what do you guys think, Dimitri? What do you think? Is there any plausibility in that?
That's a fun one. I like that one.
It's super
Sounds
interesting.
super
All right,
fun.
really cool.
Why did they give me the weird, messy
Right.
memories that they
Could have
gave
gave
me?
me better
'Cause, like, I have
memories.
a lot of
Jesus.
anxiety.
Yeah, that would be
a
a
lot of
question.
anxiety
Like
from all
if everything
man.
started last Thursday, right, and they reset every week, right? Say it resets. That would be my question. Is
I don't know that it's necessarily that it resets, but by next Thursday, what's happening right now, technically, maybe that never happened. Maybe it all just started this Thursday. Or maybe, this conversation.
I get what you're saying. It's hard to wrap
next week
around
we'll be able to
head
say
around,
this
but yeah.
conversation was the first day of our lives. We were never existed, but we thought we did before that.
So right now you're fine. Right now you're in the moment. You know you weren't created today. But tomorrow, what if you just woke up and you had the memories of yesterday in your head already? That's basically what he's saying.
So my question would be is, first of all, is there a creator? Did we get created by someone? And secondly, if so, and there's some kind of method to this madness on why this happens, why not give us a better existence? Because that means like you get to
I don't
fix
think
it
I
every
believe
time.
that at that point. I think if everything was too perfect, it wouldn't be believable. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Really?
I do have 2 theories on this.
Would you
First
know any
off,
different though?
It's been a
Exactly.
know what I
shit
mean?
week.
this went terrible.
Yeah, when you have a good week and you have a shit week, like get somebody to sit back there and go, yeah, give them a crappy dime.
Yeah.
Right? Like, secondly, execute Order 66. All right? Keeping on the theory of sci-fi, let's just do it. We'll worry about it
Order
next Thursday.
66. I forgot about that. That's funny. That is interesting. What was the one before that though?
Mandela effect?
Yes,
Have you heard of that before?
love that.
let's
Have you
talk
heard of
about.
this?
Yeah, I've heard of
Yeah.
it, but let's talk about it because we're talking about conspiracies and things like that, and this is fascinating. Jonathan is going over and he's talking about Mandela effect, and this is something, if you don't know what it is, and all of this stuff that we're talking about, like we talked about what I talked about, which was the Plum Island, and if you've never heard of it, take all of this information, man, and go look it up and do your own research and learn. This is what we want you to do, is we want you to grow from this and learn from this, because that's what I do every time I have these things, is I hear things and find out things that I really want to learn about. So we want you guys to do the same thing, and then share it with your friends and family and get people more educated on things, man, so we can become more aware of the world around us, because that's what we're missing a lot of. So go ahead and kind of talk about the Mandela effect, because I think a lot of people find that interesting.
The Mandela effect is basically, it's the phenomenon whenever a large subgroup of people will remember history a specific way, and then a whole nother subgroup of people remember it a completely different way. It got its name, Mandela effect, from Nelson Mandela. I thought that was, I couldn't remember if he was part of that. Yeah, that's where it comes. Well, because so apparently what happened in the first place, the first time this came around was, or I mean, maybe it just hadn't been recorded as well before that, I'm not really sure. But regardless, it's called the Mandela effect because when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, there was a lot of people that vividly remembered his funeral being on, like they reported, oh, Nelson Mandela has passed away in prison, and they remembered images from their TV of the funeral going on. They remember details such as like a lot of people rioted about it because, he should have never been in prison in the first place, and yada, yada, yada. And it caused this huge drama. And then, so everybody experiences that, time goes on, and then a few years later, he gets released from prison. It's just like, oh, Nelson Mandela has been, released from prison today. And there was, I don't remember the name of the woman that started it, but there was basically a woman that was freaked out by the whole situation because she really vividly remembered hearing the news that Nelson Mandela died and a bunch of riots, were a result of it, and yada, yada, yada. And so she started a website and then just ended up like tens and, I don't know exactly how many people, but over tens of thousands of people all remember the exact same thing. And a lot of them have correlating memories of the funeral and like what they saw on TV. And then there's been a bunch of other ones. So the main theory that's happening there is that reality shifts, and we don't know why. There's a bunch of different realities going on, and something happens to make them shift. The two main theories I have written down here are time travelers, which is kind of a cheap one, but maybe. And then another one, you guys know CERN's
Hadron Collider.
Hadron Collider, yeah. So a big theory is that they're doing experiments with that all the time, and they created a quantum ripple in reality, which basically tears our reality with another reality. And for some reason,
leak through for certain
yeah,
people
and for some reason, like some people, their memory shifts with the new reality, but some people remember the old reality. One that is near and dear to my heart is the Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
So I always that's like probably the second most popular after the Mandela effect.
Shazam.
Oh yeah, and the Shazam is a very recent one. But Berenstain Bears, I vividly remember as a child being spelled at the very end Stein. I remember that because I remember I couldn't ever figure out if it was pronounced Steen or Stein. Yeah. And like I was like a third or fourth grader, I could read, so like I know for a fact, but I was just like I can't remember exactly how that
I'm right
goes.
here with you, dude. I remember the exact
And so that
thing.
one freaks me out. But you can find images online because people have made it based on their memory. But every book you will find that was produced by the actual company that's not some kind of fraud is Stein.
Yeah.
It's just
no
completely
sense.
shifted. But there's so many people. Yeah, it's weird.
It freaks me out. I remember when I lived my entire life knowing in my heart of hearts that it was EIN, because that's what I remember from when I was a child. And then when this whole thing started happening on the internet and everybody was showing the pictures of the AIN, I thought it was fake. I was like,
Same.
That's not real.
Right.
Same.
And then I looked, and then I went to go buy the book on Amazon, because I was like, okay, well, Amazon will know the answer. They're not going to sell me the fake one. And it was AIN, and I was like,
I remember when I first read about it, I was like, this is
Something's
ridiculous.
wrong.
I went and looked at one of my copies of the book, and it was just, no.
Do you think that and that is something that was out, but do you think that might have been something to do with the way people pronounced it, and people just kind of
Could have been.
Missouri
I mean, there's
type
a
thing?
lot of
also theory that
psychological.
it's also a memory thing, a memory fault.
Right.
It could have
And
been.
it's also
What
the power
messes
of
with me is
suggestion,
what we were
too.
saying. Just like I remember not being
Right.
able to figure out if it was how do you say EIN? Is it EIN or EIN? I remember having that dilemma as a child because I was learning to read. I was like,
I remember, and I'm older than all of you. I remember Berenstain Bears. I remember Stain.
I always called them Berenstain Bears.
Yeah,
always.
I just remember Berenstain Bears.
But
yeah, that's what it is. But that's super interesting, and so let's quickly delve into that. So let's just say, for example, in life, let's say that there is no manipulation by another worldly force. Let's say it is just us here. Do you think that we are able to alter our existence through our behaviors and things that we do, medicines that we take, the way we exist? If we talk about the use of our brain, do you think maybe some of this is we're touching into other parts of our brain?
You mean like can you will stuff into?
Yeah.
I actually have another note about that because I have recently felt like the Mandela effect hit me personally, as I was talking to my brothers the other day, and they made some comment. Like I'm on a part of a couple different Snapchat groups, like with different brothers of mine involved, and my brothers made some comment on something, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we have a Snapchat group. We have a group text. I figured we'd start something. Whatever. It was Marco Polo, that app where you take a bunch of videos." And I responded to it, and I was like, "Yeah, if you guys have a Snapchat group, I am not a part of it, and like I don't know what you guys are talking about." And both of them were just like, "No, like we definitely have it. It's called something goofy like Brotherly Love, I think, or something like that." They're like, "We've had a Snapchat group called Brotherly Love for like 6 to 8 months, and I have never seen this before. I'm 100% like because my brother, when he sends me something, he'll send it to my personal Snapchat and every group Snap that we're involved in. So I've never seen this name Brotherly Love. And while I was arguing with them about this, I got on my phone and checked Snapchat. And the top thing on there said, Snap opened on Tuesday from Brotherly Love, and just popped up there. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, I think my little brother just willed that into existence. So he said it, my brother, like reality shifted, my older brother got on board with it.
So what's that movie? Is it The Machinist? What's the one where
Christian Bale.
he's somebody else?
Machinist is where he loses
not
a bunch of weight
Machinist,
and
not
he
Machinist, somebody else.
doesn't sleep.
Yeah, it's the one where he Memento.
Where he can't remember anything, it all goes backwards.
And he's riding.
Yeah. That's Val Kilmer, I think, right?
No, that was Memento is
Kevin Bacon.
No.
It's Val
It's that
Kilmer
one
in
dude.
Memento.
It's not.
he's the guy who played the bad guy in Iron Man.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Memento?
Yeah.
Reality
Look it
just
up.
shifted on
Memento.
me. I remember Val Kilmer
Reality.
in that movie.
But no, it wasn't Val Kilmer. It was what's his name?
Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce. There
Guy
we go.
Pearce. Yeah.
He plays a great baddie, but it's
No,
interesting.
Christopher Nolan did that. Holy crap.
Here's the interesting part about all of this is if you look at life and how we exist when we have dreams and we have moments of daydreaming, right? I've had deja vu and daydreaming before. I'm sure we all have. And when we go to sleep and we have vivid dreams and things like that, and we talk about tapping into our brain, I honestly feel like, with you talk about the Mandela effect, I think maybe these people that experience this, and this is my opinion, but maybe it's possible that we are now, because of drugs and because of medicines and things, because we don't know everything that some of these side effects, we don't know what happens. And so I look at it like, is it possible that we are consuming things, even preservatives, food additives, that are causing us to become kind of netherworldly, so to speak? In other words, we're opening up parts of our body that we typically normally wouldn't open up to, and no one's going to know that because there's still. It's like the oceans. What is it? 96% of the oceans have not been explored or something.
Yeah.
It's like our
So
brain.
it's scary amount of
91% of our brain is like, what does it do? We know that the frontal lobe, and we know what these parts of our brains are, the right and left for creation and math and logic. And there's another part back here, it's emotion and feelings. But then there's all this other plane of the brain. And if we could somehow, something cued us into that, we might experience some overlapping of time or some missing of time or some adjusted realities that cause us to go, what the hell? Like, I wake up and I'm not sitting here, I'm somewhere else next Thursday.
So do you think stuff like that, well, based on that theory, I'm trying to be clear on it, is that like psychedelics, or is that just like GMOs and like ways we're experimenting with?
And that's the thing is, do psychedelic drugs actually, do they cause us to change, or do they cause us just to be more open? That's the thing is it adjusting our thinking, or is it just allowing us to think?
Yeah.
Being more cognizant of everything, more open. I mean, if you ask like Joe Rogan and some other people that do psychedelics to kind of experience that, I think they would say that it opens their brain and allows them to kind of get in touch with it. And if you talk to them, they're so in tune with so much stuff. They're very, I'm not going to say they're more highly educated, but they're more willing to hear different things, and they open their mind up to anything. And that's kind of with this show.
As a person who does psychedelics, it really does. It opens up a broader picture, and there's the whole full circle effect and all that of it. But you just, the way I see it is you see things for what they are. Yeah. You see it down to its very core.
It turns you into a baby.
Yeah.
You're seeing things for the first time.
And it's phenomenal. It's truly a phenomenal experience.
That's kind of actually like we were talking about earlier about how it makes more areas of your mind connect. I was reading something about that is why, childhood wonder, everything is so crazy to them because apparently when you're younger, more areas of your brain connect, and as you grow up, like those areas mature, and so they don't need to communicate as much. Yeah, and so that's cool that you brought that up.
It takes something that you've understood your whole life, and you forget why you just come to understand it and see it in a new light. It's really weird.
So let's move forward.
One more thing before you go. I think also a huge part of it could be the power suggestion. Power suggestion can do crazy things to people. Even with just like you're at a restaurant, you're ordering a food. If you're just looking at a menu, you could order this one thing. But if a server comes up and is like, "Man, you have got to try these potato skins. They are so good." When you get those potato skins, because you already heard how good they were, you're a little dispositioned to be, "Oh man, these are really good." You know what I mean? The power of suggestion is an amazing thing. So if somebody's like, I definitely remember this being Berenstein Bears. You're like, yeah, me too. I think I do too. You know what I mean? Like power suggestion is a crazy thing. But
so Cody, go ahead and touch on your conspiracy theory that you
picked two. They're kind of simple ones. They're just kind of ones that I was a huge fan of. One of them is the hollow moon theory, which we talked about this a little bit. But
explain that a little bit.
It's basically this that for a number of different reasons, for a number of different possibilities, that the inside of the moon is hollow. And there's like a lot of evidence that supports it. There's been claims of when drilling on the moon and stuff like that, they've hit like a metal barrier basically when they've gotten to a certain depth. The fact that all the craters on the moon only go to a certain depth, and then none of them go any deeper than that. And there's just really cool ones, and people are like, there's aliens inside that are waiting for the right time to come out.
That's the main thing.
There's so many cool ones. There really is. It's really cool.
I have heard that
it's
one
just
before.
a silly one, but I just think it's fascinating.
You know what? Our conspiracy series, are they silly, really?
Also, the tides. It's very much a huge part of our ecosystem that the tides are where they at. So if this was maybe a man-made, or not a man-made, a terrestrial-made structure that was put there to adjust how we need our oceans to be or something like that, it's kind of one of those things.
I mean, because the moon is in the perfect place to control tide. It's like, I think it's if it was 50 miles closer or some minuscule amount, considering how far it is away, the tides would be so strong that all water on Earth would be covered at least once a day.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know that how important the lunar cycle is to the Earth. We always talk about the sun and the daylight and how important the sun is, but without the moon, we would cease to exist. A lot of people don't know that there's life cycle in the moon cycle. That's why, in fact, you talked about meditation, and this is going to be a little personal. Yeah, I've moonbathed before, where you're supposed to be naked when you do it, but you can go out into a full moon, preferably
full moon out.
Yeah, preferably a full moon. And the old advice is you go naked, so your skin's
we can do that
exposed,
tomorrow.
and then you
Next episode of
literally
Sessions,
lay out in this like you're sun tanning, and you meditate underneath the moon, and you stare at the moon and allow the lunar rays to get in your brain and soak up, and it actually helps with your sleep cycle. It helps with your weight loss. It helps, and I will tell you this.
It's relaxing as hell.
Well, it is very relaxing, and I will tell you. Before I met my wife 14, 15 years ago, I went through a super self-reflection phase where I was meditating and dieting, and I was eating completely 100% organic and clean, and I lost a lot of weight. And I lunar bathe often because I studied Chinese Tao, and the Chinese Tao talks about your connection with the earth, and it just like American Indians did, but they believed in connection with the earth, and so they believed that the nighttime was just as important as the daytime. And if you could connect with the moon and the lunar connection with the earth, it was just as important as what the sun does with us.
Melatonin plays a huge part in that too.
It does. So, hey, are you guys ready?
Chemical.
Okay, cool. So, I'm going to have you guys, he's going to turn the camera on you, and I just want you to introduce yourselves, say who you are. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break from the actual show itself. We're going to turn it over to these two guys are super talented guys. They've played open mic here a few times, not near enough for my pleasure, but they are here tonight. They've agreed to come in, and I'm super happy they're here. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll be right back with more sessions right after this musical break.
Hello, my name is Dylan Rainbow, Christian Prost, and we are at the House of Road, so we have a couple of songs to play for you all tonight. This first one is a rendition of a song from the 80s, it's Talking Heads. This must be the place. Where I want to be, pick me up and turn me around. I go numb, born with a weak heart. Guess we must be having fun. The less we say about it, the better. We make it up as we go along. Feet on the ground, head in the skies. It's okay, I know nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Oh, oh, I got plenty of time. Oh, oh, you've got light in your eyes, and you'll stay here beside me. I love the passage of time, never for money, always for love. Cover up and say goodnight. Say goodnight. And home is where I want to be, but I guess I'm already there. I come home, she's lifted up her wings, and I guess that this must be the place. And I can tell one from the other. Did I find you or you find me? And there was a time before we were born. If someone asked, this is where I'll be, where I'll be. Oh, we drift in and out. Oh, singing to my mouth. I love all those kinds of people. You got a face with you. And I'm just an animal looking for a home and share the same space for a minute or two. And you love me till my heart stops. You love me till I'm dead. And as I look, these eyes see through you. You cover up and say goodnight. Say goodnight. Oh, I got plenty of time. Oh, you got light in your eyes. Home is where I want to be. Pick me up and turn me around. I go numb, born with a weak heart. Yes, we must be having fun. Must be having
all. It's actually a song of a band called Wildorado. It's Morning Light, and it's a band I actually saw in Seattle over the summer, and heard the music and really fell in love with it. But so, yeah, here we and everywhere between. But don't you worry, baby, I'll be coming home again. I'll be walking up your road, I'll be holding out my hand. When the sun comes up in the morning, I'll be well on my way home. Darling, now's the time to dry your eyes. 'Cause I'll be holding you in the morning light. I'll be holding on to you in the morning.
What's his name? Tiny Lister, the guy that's, what's his name? Is the president. Terry Crews. Yeah. Oh, he dances and stuff. Like this jazz. Yeah, President Macho or whatever.
We good, Jay? All right, we're back. You are. Thank you, guys.
Awesome job,
Thank you so
guys.
much. You gonna stick around for a minute? Yeah, because you can do a couple more at the end. So, the good thing about being in a riverfront community and having a bar is we have lots of talented people around that come in for open mic. Zach is actually our open mic host now here at Shakers, and these two gentlemen over here are part of open mic, and we're so glad to have them down. They're super talented, as you can tell, and I feel blessed because we've got all this talent that comes through here. And I'm lucky enough that they want to come play, so it's pretty cool. We do have quite a bit more to cover, and I want to make sure that we do get to cover. And we are going to talk about Nikola Tesla a little bit because he's one of my one of my kind of, I guess, heroes, you could say. And then we want to talk about a little bit about the connection between fatherless homes and mass shooters. So, your conspiracy theory. You got one? Two?
I have one more.
Oh, you got another
one?
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
always want to let them.
Go ahead.
It's real quick. It's another real, just kind of fun one. It's called the NASA's Blue Beam Project. It's basically this theory that NASA or some other like group or organization is going to stage a bunch of basically apocalypses or apocalypse scenarios, and like induced earthquakes, induced storms, just catastrophes to bring on what is in most religions would come through as an apocalypse or a second coming. And then they're supposed to like and technologically beam this entity into the sky that like describes the new world order and like all these people. It's like a new religion and that kind of thing. It's supposed to bring everybody together and basically like your gods have failed you. The end is nigh. Like you come to our new world order.
Okay.
Because I mean, I'm talking like global catastrophes where people are like, we don't know what to do now, and they're going to be really susceptible. And if they think that their religion's failed them and they have a new one to rely on, then they're all going to flock to this new world order. That kind of thing.
Well, there is a lot of talk and a lot of theory about manipulation of weather and weather machines and causing changes to the environment. So that conspiracy theory could hold some credence. I mean, there are stories out there. Remember
there's a ton of backing to it. There's a ton of evidence, all the evidence, like I say, but it's just a really cool theory.
And that's the thing about conspiracy theories is conspiracy theories get a bad rap. Like they get a bad rap. They're like, it's because you think it's by crazy people with tinfoil hats, but I'm not a tinfoil hat crazy person. I just think it's interesting to learn about the possibilities in life of what could and could not happen. And conspiracy theories are interesting because a lot of them are based in things that are going on.
Sometimes they come to be actual things.
Yeah.
Look at the JFK. I mean, that was a conspiracy theory back in the day, and now it's kind of almost proven to this point that there was
declassified documents. There was Operation Norwood.
Yeah. You remember in Dumb and Dumber where he says, "No way, we landed on the moon," with the article. Anyway, sorry, Zach. What's your conspiracies, buddy?
Denver International Airport.
Give us more. Give us more about Denver. Tell us about.
So good.
That's all I got. Just
leave it there.
Do you know? We talked about it a little bit before.
I mean, I've heard smidgens, but not everybody would know.
Keeping up with the New World Order here. First off, the place is built on FEMA camps. FEMA concentration camps, if you will. Underneath it is theorized that there is underground tunnels leading to different places.
Yeah.
Upon going there, you actually see this giant horse statue, and its eyes like glow.
It's not
red.
for the Broncos.
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Its eyes actually glow red at night, which is super creepy considering that the sculptor, it actually fell on him and he died from loss of blood.
Yeesh.
Wait, where is this at? It's underneath. It's underground.
No,
or
it's
it's
just
just
horse
in
is
there?
literally right when you drive in.
Like the mascot for the airport is right out front.
Gotcha,
and
gotcha,
At
gotcha.
night it glows red.
It's
Like they're saying there are tunnels underneath the airport. Yeah.
There are corridors that lead nowhere. There are exit arrows that literally point to each other. At some of the terminals, they have the statues of Anubis, which is the Egyptian god of death.
Yeah.
Not to mention this picture. Go on, pass around at your whimsy. It's a bunch of like Nazi propaganda. You have what
What
looks
the
like
heck? That's at
SS
Denver
soldiers.
Airport?
They have
That
a
is
bunch of
literally
weird
there.
stuff like this. That's not even the half of it. They have a bunch of weird murals
Yeah.
all over the place. It's
What is
very
the
strange.
point to this?
No one knows. That just they
Illuminati,
They're
dude.
clues.
Is this all, where do you find this at so people can find it?
You can Google it.
You can definitely Google the murals of Denver.
So this is
International
Denver
Airport.
International Airport.
Yes, right there, of
my
course, in
God.
Denver,
Yeah,
Colorado.
and they have a bunch of weird stuff like
I
this.
actually heard it was formed upon
What is
the
that?
a lizard burial ground.
Yes,
is what I
lizard
heard.
people, cannibalistic lizard people, brought to you by, of course, GW.
That's Illuminati type shit right
That's
there.
well,
exactly what it is.
actually, it is theorized that it is a Illuminati hub.
Yeah,
See,
it's like one of their
I knew it.
headquarters.
The image underneath this picture, actually, there's a plaque that says "Does it dit guy," which a lot of people walking by that, seeing the guy that looks like an SS soldier killing doves and standing over children with
it
swords.
looks okay. So everybody knows it looks like an SS soldier that's like half dead, like a skeleton almost,
Yeah.
pulling back their earth and exposing like a baby and its mother. It's really weird.
Carrying
but
a
that's
scimitar murdering a duck.
If you Google it, you'll find that picture very
Google
quick.
it, but
It's
it's
one of the
at
strangest
Denver Airport. I'm
pictures.
sorry, but Denver, you're freaking weird. What's going on, man?
So, like, when you look at that, you know, I mean, you have this, underneath this image specifically, it has the Dizit guy, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. A lot of people seeing the image, they actually relate it straight to German language. It's not German, it's Navajo for the Great White Mountain,
Oh, nice.
which just helps out with the image.
Yeah.
And then, like, last but not least, there's theories that there's a whole bunch of objects, if you will, that are very phallic shaped in the place, and they theorize that it is to inspire devil worship. You know, not to mention they do not keep up with the technological advances. They prefer the old ways of airport screening. There's actually security checkpoints that go missing upon approach. There's tons of reports of this.
What do you
Okay.
mean by that? Security?
So,
what
like,
do you mean?
You've been in an airport, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
So walking up there, you're like, ah, shit, I'm going to be patted down, right? When you get there, no.
There's just nobody
like
there?
no one there. It's now just the gate that you can walk right through. And there's, I mean, dude, countless reports. People swear by their memory that they saw this. You know.
So I was going to take a trip to Colorado just to buy dope, but now I'm going to see the airport.
Now I'm going to join the Illuminati.
Don't call it dope.
Don't call it dope. That means a whole new thing now, man.
I was told that before. I'm supposed to say weed or pot or whatever.
Anything else, yes.
All right, I was just going to go there to buy weed or pot,
There you
but
go.
now I want to go see the airport. That's super interesting, man, for real. Like, I knew a little, like a smidge of that, but not, that's super crazy. Wow.
And the airport's playing into it now. Like they'll have like signs on the doors
They
that
have
literally
signs
say
that-
that like authorized personnel and lizard people only.
See,
Yeah.
and that's the thing.
They play
That's the
into
thing with conspiracy theories. As soon as they take root, right, like this thing, you can like literally in people's faces do these things.
That's the thing, yeah.
and
If they-
people are like, oh,
Cover.
okay,
Yeah.
That's
whatever.
the cover.
They're just like, and then it starts making it a joke to where people are like, oh, it's funny.
It's
There's
just-
nothing
there's
going
nothing
on.
going on.
They're
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
a joke about it. It's like, that's the whole game.
And now the people who are, you know, definitely checked out are actually being eaten by lizard people.
Yeah.
This is hard fact.
Daily.
So
look that up.
you know, if you're Alex Jones,
Yes.
this is
Put
your
a shit in
stuff.
the water that's
This
turned
is
the
your
frickin'
stuff.
Frogs gay.
So real quickly, I want to tell you this one before we get to the next topic. But back in 1942 in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, I don't know if you guys know about this or not.
Yes,
but
I know this one.
you know about this? So 1,000 residents came home and read notes on the doors that told them they had to move. So they moved out 1,000 residents. This is actually the place where the Manhattan Project took place.
What year was this?
1942.
42, okay.
This is the Manhattan Project, which was the development of the atomic bomb. They literally, if you looked on a map, you could not find Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It was literally taken off the existence. So in other words, the government was able to hide a town for about 4 years.
It's just like the Star Wars. Like, if it's not
Exact-
in the database, it does not exist.
Exactly. And so up to 75,000 people worked in this town at one point, right? They didn't know what they were working on. They weren't told what it was. They were given little mundane, crappy jobs, like turn this dial when
Yep,
this gets
I've
to
heard
this.
of that. That's a classic thing for our government. They don't want you to know about the whole project. They're just
Right.
like, all we need to know is how much power this can generate if you screw with it.
So they took the town under eminent domain policies, right? The Manhattan Project was developed by the atomic bomb. They fenced off the town, and the workers in the town working at the nuclear plant they were working at a nuclear plant, but they weren't told what they were doing, and they said that it would help end the war. That's what they were told. So what this all kind of comes to it did.
Sucks,
it did. And then they dropped 2 big bombs on Japan.
Now
But
we got tentacle porn.
yeah. So here's my thing is with all of these conspiracy theories, all of the whole reason I want to do this is what's real, what's not, and that's the fascination with life is what exists in that nether plane, in that in between place that we talk about and we hope isn't there, but in the same way we're fascinated with it. It's like some of these conspiracy theories are super interesting. That like the Mandela effect. We've all had those moments where we thought something happened, but it didn't. But then somebody else goes, "Oh,
Affirmed it,
yeah."
and it's just like,
exactly.
oh, yeah.
So if you worked in this town back in the 40s, you didn't know what you were doing. You were doing it, but in other words, you were living this weird existence where outside of your fenced-in town, you didn't exist. Like nobody knew about Oak Ridge, Tennessee in the 40s. until after that, and then it was established. But it's crazy. So the reason I want to do this is for the exact fact of is explore that. Go on YouTube, put in conspiracy theories, and just look at the stuff. And if you're not doing it, you're not educating yourself, because there's so much stuff out there that you guys need to pick up on. So,
2 things real quick. One, I'm super proud of you guys for not picking the flat Earth. Thank God. I was really worried somebody was going to try to bring flat Earth in there.
That was such a
too easy
disgusting.
almost, right?
Yeah, it's almost too easy.
Chris brought it up.
Did he? Okay, well,
Yeah, I
figured it.
distinctively ignored her.
I do have a
funny.
really dumb one real quick that I love.
It can't be dumb if it's conspiracy
Mine's 1
theory.
cent. Let me get
That's
that
the
real
thing
quick.
is there is
Okay.
no rating. If it's conspiracy theory, it
Right.
counts.
Go to YouTube and look up Dome of the Rock.
I looked at that one.
Creepy, dude.
Yeah,
it's
Dome of the
super
Rock
creepy.
is
Anyway,
creepy.
go ahead.
Okay, my favorite conspiracy theory of all time. I say it's dumb just because it's so like.
It's not dumb.
so silly.
It's not dumb. We're
I
here.
love it.
We're all here for you.
Okay, it's not dumb, but it's so silly. It's a conspiracy theory that Avril Lavigne died in like 2009. I love this.
That's the best one.
I'm ready. Keep going. Keep
Okay,
going. Keep
so
going.
Avril Lavigne died.
It was 07.
07. Okay, I was.
Oh, you've heard it
Okay,
too?
Oh,
so
yes.
Avril Lavigne died in 2007.
Is that when she married Nickelback?
And actually, I
Kroger.
think.
Jack Kroger, yeah.
Okay, so she died in 2007, and ever since then, her sister, who looked a lot like her beforehand, got cosmetic surgery and has been her. And all of the things that point to this is that pre-2007 Avril Lavigne, her musical style was amazing and great. She was super fun. She would let fans like be right next to her when she took
Yeah.
pictures and posed. From 2007 onward, everybody has to stay 10 feet away. She's always with armed guard. She doesn't let people talk to her. You look at pictures that fans like take with her, and she is like here, and the fan is like over here, and there's a guard in
pointing
between.
at her.
them. No, and she
And
just
her nose is fucked up.
and her nose is different, and her songs aren't the same. Like she went like to like a whole different direction with her music. It doesn't barely.
That's what
sound
happens
like
when you
her.
marry Chad Kroger. Your music style.
That's like the whole
changes.
thing with
It's
Bob
just
Dylan. How they
so
think.
funny because it was like this huge thing. I mean, the conspiracy
They
thing
think,
online.
his-
people are like they're pointing to all these things. They're like, oh my gosh, and like she did this, and like her hair isn't different. People are like, her hair texture is.
So
not
you
the
just,
same.
whoever's watching, you just started a fervor. Everybody's gonna go out and go on YouTube. Avril
Same
Lavigne's.
theory
Look
was
her up.
done just like Dylan he was saying, as well as Eminem.
And Eminem? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've
one.
heard the Eminem
In
thing, dude.
2000,
Eminem hired-
03, and 06.
Eminem hired a bunch of people that look a lot like him. You remember his video, Slim Shady? What's the one?
Real
where-
Slim
Real Slim Shady.
Yeah, the Real Slim
People that look
Shady?
like
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah, so he hired a bunch of people that look like him to
Walk,
show
talk,
up.
and act like him.
Yeah, that walk like him, that talk like him, that look
Is
like.
that what the song's about?
Well,
or was it like
no?
bred from
He
the
looks.
song?
He looks like an average white guy. I mean, really,
Yeah.
he's just like a normal
Except if he has
white
a
guy.
beard.
But then he
Was this post this song though? That's my question. Or
Yeah,
like,
it's
do
post
people-
song. It's post the
okay,
song.
I was.
What
okay.
it was is it was because of all the demands, and he wanted to be home, so he hired a bunch of people, and you never knew if it was Eminem or one of the stand-ins.
Interesting.
You never knew. So it was one of the conspiracies. It wasn't really like a end of the world conspiracy type thing, but it was like an Avril Lavigne type thing.
There's a Paul McCartney too. They think
Yeah.
he died in like '66, but they thought it would rock the world so much they're like, nobody can know that Paul McCartney's
Right.
dead.
You know, the only one that they don't do that with is the guitarist from the Rolling Stones. That dude will never die.
Yeah,
We're
there'll be
not
2
trying to save the
cockroaches.
earth for us. We're saving the earth for Keith
Right,
Richards.
right.
Keith Richards will never-
Robin
like-
Williams, live on Broadway.
Yeah.
He's like, at the end of the world, there's going to be Keith Richards and 2 cockroaches. He's going to be like, you know, I smoked your uncle once. Fucking crazy.
And like Betty White will be in the background. Be like, I'm still here, guys.
All right, let's move right to the next one. So, I do want to talk about the fatherless homes and the connection with the mass shooters, but I want to go right to Nikola Tesla. And this is something we can touch on quickly. It's something you can research at home and find a lot more about. I've read a couple books on him, and there's so many references out there. Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. Nikola Tesla is of the Tesla company with the cars, and that's kind of the onset of electric power for vehicles. He was doing experimentations, and the experiment you saw in what was the movie with Prestige, where he put the light bulb in the ground, which and then he basically the light came on, and he had basically figured out how to electrocute the ground. So why I wanted to bring this up is Tesla is credited with many inventions, but there's a lot of inventions that other people took.
That's what I was about to say. It's crazy how many things that he came up with first that other people a lot of it was his lab burned down.
Yeah.
And he lost a lot of stuff. And during that time of like disarray, all these people came forward with all these patents for things that he had been working on
straight
for
up
years.
arson. Yeah, it was straight up arson. Yeah. So we all know about Tesla and his and his friendship or rivalry with Thomas Edison. At the same time, Edison was an inventor and he was a very intelligent guy, and he's credited with the light bulb. But a lot of people think that Edison befriended Tesla so he could steal and take from him, and Tesla, who did not have the connections that Edison had at the patent office, because where did Edison work at?
It's not just that, dude. Radio.
At the patent
radio.
office.
Radio he was credited to.
Yeah.
Like, it's
So
insane.
I'm gonna let you guys talk just a smidge about it, but I want everybody out there, man, if you have not ever looked at Nikola Tesla and the genius of
Absolutely
him
fascinating human.
and what he
He's one of the most influential guys of
Absolutely.
all
I
time.
think he was the last Da Vinci we'll see.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yep,
just
in our
it's
lifetime at
so
least. Like, maybe
interesting
one
the
will come
stuff
out,
that
yeah.
he was able to that just came from his mind, and we talk about medical discoveries and these things. This guy was a revolutionary inventor. He invented things that people were like,
what?
what?
294 patents or something like that?
Yeah, it just stupid numbers, and then there was so many more. And like you said, the lab burned down, and other people took credit. But
There's
let's
like
just
6 things that he has they have notes of him working on that he was like going toward, and then when his lab burned down, all these inventions started popping up that were taking his work,
Yeah.
and it's just like super like, oh, is that just a huge coincidence?
And
I
the
mean,
bad thing is he didn't really have any family that could really stick up
And
for
he
him once he
was
was gone.
broke.
And he was broke.
he
and
funneled all of his money into his inventions and his lab.
You know the old adage of when you do what you love, you're not working. Well, he felt that way about things. But if you look through history and inventors and people that invented stuff, you look at the invention of penicillin. His wife invented penicillin, but he gets a lot of credit for that. So let's pass this around to Tesla a little bit. What you guys have? We'll start with you.
Well, I was just going to ask real quick. I mean, I said in our lifetime, and then it immediately dawned on me that he was not anywhere near our lifetime. But are there a lot of people that think that he's the last great, like a Da Vinci, or like when you say that, are there a lot of people who think he was one of the last great minds like Da Vinci that we'll ever see?
I believe a lot of people do.
Interesting. Why is that? Like,
All right,
they don't
first
think in a
off,
few
look
hundred
at
years.
what Da Vinci's done.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was conceptualizing planes.
Right.
Like, he was
And,
incredible.
I mean, he literally made the first tank. That he was doing stuff that was so absurd.
Centuries before his time.
Yeah.
Phenomenal man. He could truly separate his brain and use both at the same time. Like,
Right.
I mean, he was brilliant in its very existence. Not to mention, are we still live? Because it just dropped on me.
I don't know. I got Jay over there to figure that out. I don't know.
So, I mean, that being said, though, when you compare a person to Da Vinci, that's a really big shoe to fill, and I do believe that it was Tesla who filled it. I don't think we'll have another person, at least not in my lifetime.
But you also got to think of like the great minds, as far as like I mean, that's like an inventive mind. You know what I mean?
Sure.
There's different great minds that we've obviously had since then. People that have made leaps and bounds in different fields, and some of them you've never even heard of. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't think he was necessarily a great mind. I think he's one of the as far as the constructs he had in his mind leading to things that changed the world. I think that's where the invention.
And it makes you wonder though, because
like,
at the
one of
time,
great inventors, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
When
Jay,
you
are we
look-
up? We're good? Okay.
When you look at the comparison, though, like, I mean, I compared Nikolai there to Da Vinci, but, I mean, what happened to Da Vinci? They tried to silence him.
I mean, look at Einstein.
Yeah.
Einstein was after Tesla. You know what I
Well,
mean?
of
Like, he
course.
was still a great
And,
mind, but didn't
Einstein
necessarily
was a
have
brilliant mind. I just don't think
inventions.
he was he wasn't an inventor.
Right.
But when you look at Da Vinci, all right, they tried to silence him. They destroyed so much of what he did, and I think if they never did that, we'd be a better off society than we did now. When you look at Tesla, the same shit happened. Whether it's a theorize of, it just burned down. No.
Right.
No, and my personal belief, I think Edison had a lot to do with it. That guy was a skis ball. Sure, he had connections.
Keys ball.
Hey,
Do you think throughout history people just don't want one guy being the brilliant
Yes.
mind that comes out with all this? So it's like, no, this is a collective human
Yeah, there's
effort.
a
Like, we
natural-
all
Whether-
came up with
whether-
this.
There's a
the-
natural jealousy.
Yeah.
Like if you come up with something good and we're friends,
what you're talking about with them
naturally am
destroying.
I
envious.
could have came up with that.
Yeah.
Like if I had thought of it first.
Yeah, I've been part of your life, man. Some of that's my idea. You know,
Yeah.
that happened.
That makes
So,
sense.
what do you have?
Real quick, what you're talking about with destroying always makes me think of the Family Guy episode where it's like, this is the timeline where religion never destroyed science,
Yeah.
and it's all like just like a futuristic world with flying cars and all this stuff. Anyway, sorry,
I
go
wrote down some stuff that I thought were his most influential inventions, or like just most impressive to me.
I looked through
A lot
those
of
too.
these, though, is kind of how we're talking. It wasn't that he necessarily invented it, but it was that his research
Yeah,
led to
led
it being
to
invented.
huge
Like
things,
one of them
yeah.
was the submarine. He came up with the notion, like he figured out how to
Counterbalance.
transmit
Pressurized,
energy
yeah.
without wiring. Yeah, so like you're going under the ocean, like he was first conceptualizing, like, okay, well, now that I figured out how to transmit energy without wires, I could transmit, like I could, we could lead them under the ocean. They could figure out where they're going from a different base, and that's how we get like pacemakers today. Is because Tesla figured out how to transmit energy without that. So you can have a pacemaker in your heart that's charged
it's
by something
alternate current, right?
at a
Is that-
different,
is that
yeah.
different thing?
Hey,
I mean, I
AC/DC,
think so.
yeah.
I cannot
Well,
get
and
into
for
the science at
you,
all.
super interesting. Tesla did a lot of experimentation in advanced spotlighting and lights. He did a lot with the capacity and the ability of light bulbs and how far you could push them. And he helped with the elemental design. He had a light bulb that was like an everlasting light bulb. So these new swirl light bulbs you see that supposed to last 10 years, a lot of that came from Tesla. So
Yeah, and
Super
Obviously, the Tesla.
But isn't a lot
boy.
of that stuff talking
Yeah.
on conspiracy? As I feel like Tesla was creating stuff that could last forever, not forever,
Right.
but it
Well,
was just
but
very
we were
lasting,
like-
and it
we were
kind of
like,
makes you wonder.
we need money for
Everything
these
we
things,
have
yeah.
depreciates quick today. Like I think I heard something like the '60s. There was a car that could go like 60 miles to the gallon. And like there was a bunch of
But
ridiculous stuff,
oil
and they just
companies bought all the
discontinued it.
patents up?
Yes,
In the 80s was the same thing with the Ford Festiva.
yeah,
That car literally got 70 miles to the gallon. They cut it.
yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's
There-
not,
there was
it's
some-
not
there was
part of
some-
the picture. It's not.
There was
part of
some
how it's
young
supposed to be.
inventor who learned how to make cars run on
Water.
something cheap. Was it water?
Water. It
was water.
Yeah, and then they bought the patent from him for a ridiculous amount of money, and then he just stopped talking because it was probably a situation where it was like,
Like,
hey,
we're
we're
gonna
going to
give
give
you
you a
this
bunch of
money,
money.
and you can stop
If
talking about it
don't-
or we're gonna kill you.
Yeah, it's just like if you don't take the money, we'll kill your family. We won't kill you. We won't
There was
confirm
that-
that
there was-
conspiracy, but like your family will
There
get
was
fired from the
that
jobs.
film that was out on HBO. It was a story about a person that invented the intermittent washer, the windshield wiper, the intermittent windshield wiper, and his battle against like GM. And like he invented it, and he took it to them as an idea, and they took it from him.
Yeah.
And they tried to make it his own, but that happens a lot in life.
All the time.
Yeah.
The guy that created the seatbelt didn't get a patent on it. He
No.
purposely made it where everyone
Yeah,
could have
so
it. Which-
everybody could have
That's
it,
one
which
of
is-
those guys that
Ralph
gets
Nader?
Solid dude.
Was that Ralph Nader?
Not
Probably.
Where is Ralph
Most
Nader now?
likely.
Is he still alive?
Well, that's like what's happened.
sure.
That's what's happened in Canada with EpiPens and insulin.
Oh, yeah.
There aren't patents on those things because the Canadian government believes that anything that is like a vital life-saving
Life-saving,
thing,
yeah.
it's illegal to get a patent
I
for
think-
it. It's illegal to
look,
make that like.
I don't like the government telling me anything I should do, but at the same time, I want them to control some of these companies.
Right.
And I think when it comes to life-saving stuff, I'm all for that.
I think we need to give up on everybody here, have your Narcan, and focus on the insulin, focus on the EpiPens.
Well, and like Narcan, the thing is like I think that like that is like a great thing to just like make available to the public because I think it's like an important life-saving tool.
It could
but
help
it doesn't
stop an
necessarily. I
epidemic.
mean, like the cost for Narcan is just like so much, like it's not being inflated right now. It's like a pretty easy thing. It's like subsidized. It doesn't cost the government like that much, or like a local authority that much money to like provide a little bit of it so that people can have it. Like when I was in Florida, like almost everybody I knew had Narcan because they made it available down there. But like stuff like insulin that's getting marked up 800% for profit, and it's just like people are like dying because there's that guy that died. He couldn't afford his insulin and he died because they marked up the price like 800%.
You gonna blow through a couple more inventions?
I had one of them was AC power,
Yep.
like
Yeah.
throughout your whole house. Like we had generators that could produce some kind of air, but he apparently realized by shortening magnetic cores, which is I understand, but it's very scientific. I'm not
Right,
going to get into it right now. I'm just kidding.
Explain it to us, will you?
But yeah, something about shortening magnetic cores. He was able to really multiply the power that a generator could give out, and that's how we get AC today. Is because
that-
Tesla saw a little thing. And was
The
like, "Hopefully we
alternating
can kinda mess with
current.
these."
The alternating current is, and some people know this, but current continues throughout your house
Yeah.
on a nonstop flow. It has to. And then he was able to. He knew that if he was able to send that to relays, basically between things, it was
Yeah.
able to break it down without stopping the flow.
Well,
So-
and there's another like thing to that, which is that so like there was a big battle between Westinghouse and Edison. And Tesla worked for Westinghouse at the time, and Westinghouse was pushing AC current, and Tesla was
didn't know
pushing
that.
DC current. DC current
We're
is
about to
just.
have a movie about it.
Yeah.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Current Wars.
Ooh, that sounds good. I'll go see it.
I didn't know they worked for Westinghouse. That's cool.
DC current is basically the idea of you send the electricity that way. Alternating current, you alternate it many thousands of times a second. And what happens is with DC current, you have to like set up substations because the transmission ability
Right.
isn't very good.
Right.
Alternating current, you can send it thousands of miles. And that was the real breakthrough, was that like, and there was I remember there was like a thing where Edison used AC current to electrocute an elephant to prove how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the things
An
that Edison
elephant.
did. He
Wow.
electrocuted an elephant that had like stampeded over some people at like a carnival or something like that. But the whole idea behind alternating current is just the way you just produce it in a different way, and it increases the transmission. And it's the reason we can have like a power plant. Because with DC current, you had to set up power plants. Like New York would have to have like 60 power plants
Right.
in the city, just like all over the
Can
place.
AC and DC exist without the other?
Yeah.
So they're separate systems. You
I was
can't
about to make an
send-
AC/DC joke. I'll
Yeah.
just leave it. I'll let it go. Go ahead.
We'll just go back to black.
Yeah, go ahead. I was
So,
going to say that you just get
real
thunderstruck,
quickly,
but
real
it's fine.
quickly, because we're near the end of the show. I want to touch on this real quick. We're going to actually do this on the next show. So the Follow This Homes and the mass shooters. I only brought this up real quickly because I wanted to cover this. Is coming from a home that I didn't know my father, and you're aware of that too. You miss something in your upbringing, and some of the things that you miss is I believe your compassion as a male, and that's a different kind of compassion than a female has. And your compassion as a male is to be strong but still be able to hold someone's hand. And I identify that with my daughters. Is I'm still strong. I show them how a man should treat their children and significant others, but then also be able to hold their hand and pick them up when they get hurt. So we'll talk more about this, but does anybody want to throw something in there with that as far as I really want to examine this and get deeper into it. We just kind of ran out of time, and I don't want to take it too much longer. But
I think there's a lot that occurs when you don't have a male figure being a male.
yeah,
Your mother will teach you compassion.
Uh-huh.
That's fine. But it's not that same level, just like you're saying there.
Right.
There's that difference there. I believe that, like as a guy who kind of had the same issue going on there, you find it in other people, and
Right.
Not
you
necessarily
find,
the
Right.
right people.
yeah,
Right, and if you find it in the wrong person, God forbid you have horrendous things happen. If you find it in the right person, that man will pick you up. That man will make sure you're on the right track.
I think it's a comforting strength is what
Yeah.
I'm looking at. Is when you have a man that loves you, that's a guidance for you. You have a comforting strength where you feel safe and you feel secure, and it's not about being adversarial or being macho. It's about men can be strong and still be soft and sweet. I don't know why I keep touching the shoulder. Sorry, but I think that's what it is in the mass shooters. In the case of mass shooters, is a lot of them don't have a relationship with their father, or if they do, it's a strained relationship. And I think I want to get into that more. So, are you guys able to come back next week?
I think so.
Probably,
Pretty
yeah.
sure.
Okay, if you
I'll
are.
try to clear my schedule.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate it, Cody. I know you haven't been to any of these. So we're going to close it out there. We'll continue that the fatherless and the connection with the mass shooters. We'll continue that next week if we can get you guys back. We haven't been able to do that much because we haven't always had to repeat. But I am super.
Is this our first two-parter?
This might be a two-parter. Yeah.
Two-parter. That's pretty exciting.
I would like to continue. I would love to continue with some more Nikola Tesla. I would
Yeah,
like to
let's
continue.
bring them also.
And that's what I think the show. We can always bring up stuff we talked about before, and I want to make sure we do that. So, this next week we're going to talk about the fatherless homes. We're going to talk about the connection, and we'll add some other stuff, and then we'll let you guys bring some topics in. Yeah. But for Eric Harper, your host, Zach Mazade, Cody Essick, Dimitri Gann, and I Gautier. Did I do it?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Jonathan Gautier. I just don't want to mess it up. I'd say last names all the time wrong, and I'm like, people just let it go. Jonathan Gautier. So our guest tonight, and I appreciate y'all sitting with us. We're just a few minutes past. Last week, I think we went over about 20 minutes again. So we're going to try to keep you on schedule this week. Every week on Thursday from 8 to 10 p.m., we sit down at this table with the black tablecloth, and these fine gentlemen and fine people get around the table, and we talk about everyday events and things, and we don't really talk about politics too much because you've already got that wherever you go. So we want to. So if there's something you want to hear or something you want to talk about, you can always hit us up on the message board. Let us know as we go along. So for all my guests, myself, Eric Harper, I really appreciate you guys coming out. Join us next week, again, Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m., as you join us for sessions that we're trying to change media, and we're trying to give you real talk from real people out all the time. So
Why we do this show, am I right?
So we're going to take you back to the musical guest. Good night. Thank you for coming out. We'll see you later.
Great stuff, man. That was fun. It was awesome. I loved it, man. Yeah, we'll throw something out there, yeah.
It was fun researching too. That's what I was thinking.
I love it because I learned like feeling weed.
Feeling raw in the prime of my life.
You never know.
Let's make some music, make some money, find some models for wives. I'll move the parachute, some photos, and I'll mess with the stars. Yeah, you man the island and the metro train in elegant cars. This is our decision. Live fast and die young. We've got the vision. So now let's have some fun. Yeah, it's overwhelming. But what else can we do? Get jobs in offices and wake up for the morning commute. Forget about our lovers and our friends. Oh yeah, we're fated to pretend. Oh yeah, we're fated to pretend. I'll miss the playgrounds and the animals and digging up worms. Yeah, I'll miss the comfort of my mother and the weight of the world. Yeah, I'll miss my sister, miss my father, miss my dog and my home. Yeah, I'll miss the boredom and the freedom and the time we spent alone. There is really nothing, no nothing we can do. Love must be forgotten, and life can always start anew. Models will have children, and we'll get a divorce. Find some more models, everything must run its course. Forget about our lovers and our friends. Oh yeah, we're fated to pretend. To pretend. Oh yeah, we're fated to pretend. To pretend. We're fated to pretend.